for the Tottenham boss?
Be better, but be much better. Be where Spurs should be. Spurs are a top half team, minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, get in the Europa Conference. I think anything less than European football is a failure. Genuinely feels a failure.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. So, a busy start to Wimbledon, but post Murray, who is best set to be the new poster boy this summer for British tennis? Meantime, should club rivalry ever get in the way of a good deal? Also today, we'll bring you news from Brisbane, from Switzerland, from Turkey, in the worlds of rugby, football and boxing. Is America really going to outdo Qatar when it comes to the activists? A breach-free period for PSR. So have clubs learned their lesson? And after all the whining about lightning and the heat, how workable would a Winter World Cup really be? It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live in talkSPORT.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Just before I forget, don't forget, the British and Irish Lions face off against the Queensland Reds in their third warm-up game today. The kickoff is just under an hour from now at 11 o'clock. Now, we will update you throughout the morning here with Simon and myself, but if you want full live exclusive commentary, head over to talkSPORT 2. The best way to listen is to download the talkSPORT app, where you can swipe between talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. That is the Queensland Reds in the Lions' third warm-up game today, kickoff at 11 o'clock. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to you, Simon.
Okay?
What's happened? I must admit, I know it's predictable, but I welcome this break in the weather.
Oh, yeah.
My God, we've been boiling in the last few days.
Intense heat, yeah. I mean, you want some nice weather, but you don't want that kind of prickly, burning heat. I tell you what was burning my ears this morning, listening to the breakfast show this morning and listening to Dan Evans talk about Gabby Abongalha challenging him at paddle, and then immediately discounting the fact that if Gabby Abongalha can't even beat Simon Jordan, he has no chance of playing against me. I mean, I got that in between the guffaws and the laughter that McCoist and Brazil do all morning. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than laughing at your own jokes, is there?
No, exactly. I don't think we're guilty of that. You make me laugh, and I hope I make you laugh.
Indeed. Keown makes me laugh, but for different reasons.
And Martin Keown makes us both laugh. Having said that, you're having the last laugh because you're not with me tomorrow, and Martin Keown is.
Indeed.
So well done to you. So let's make the most of it today, Simon. I'll be interested to see. I'm glad that we're covering the Lions game live. talkSPORT is all over that. Alfie Reynolds is out there because already, and I know I've said this about the Club World Cup, but once these things start, once the Lions tour started, I thought, right, I'm into it now. And I can't wait for the first test. I hope they do well out there.
Well, I have to say, despite my predilection for Antipodeans, there's nothing greater than smashing an Aussie.
Correct.
And I hope that they go and do that, because I had to listen to Campese last week, who was irritating the life out of me.
You don't like him?
I just think, I think he says things to get a rise. Yeah. And he gets a rise. He's of that sort of Ian Chappell, isn't he?
Well, he got a rise out tonight. I must admit, there's no break in sport, is there, this summer? It's fantastic. Now, here's the thing. British #1 Jack Draper began his Wimbledon campaign. A commanding performance, Simon, before his opponent, Sebastian Baez, retired through injury. All right, it doesn't really matter. It's great that Draper's through. He was 6-2, 6-2, 2-1 up when his opponent retired after 1 hour and 14 minutes. But post-Murray, is British tennis desperately seeking their new poster boy? And is it too early to say Jack Draper is that very person?
Well, any sport that's so prevalent in a country, specifically when you've got something like Wimbledon, is going to seek to have top players in its ranks.
Yeah.
Of course. And we've had, over the years, going back to Buster Mottram or to John Lloyd or to Roger Taylor, who's coming on later on, and ultimately on to Jeremy Bates and on to Tim Henman. We've always had this ambition to have top players because obviously Fred Perry was the poster boy for winning Wimbledon, and obviously Andy Murray was the next person to win it.
Yeah, but Simon, this is a top tournament in world tennis.
Of course it is.
Now we need someone to go out there and smash it and win it.
Well, that's great.
One of our own.
Sure, that's great, but the likelihood of that is probably low. I mean, you need Sinner and Alcaraz to either get knocked out by somebody and have a bad performance or have a bad day if you play them. I mean, Draper is a top player. As I said to you the other day, I was talking to Jamie Delgado 5 years ago, and I was looking back through my text message, seeing what he said about Draper, and he thought he was going to be a top player. I'm not sure he thought he was going to be inside the top 5.
Right.
And he talked about some of the challenges. I was comparing him to Carl Edmund at the time. How does he rank with Carl Edmund? And Carl Edmund had got number 14 in the world. Draper is a good player. He did to the fella yesterday what he should do. I mean, the only thing that you were worried about was whether Draper would not respond to the pressure that's going to be put on him. He spoke about it previously, didn't he? He said that the pressure's not there. He feels that the expectation of the fans spurs him on, and the energy that the British fans provide for him are going to galvanise him, and that's what it did yesterday. Yeah.
You're looking back over text messages from 5 years ago. You got a lot of free time in your hands.
No. I was wanting to get a tennis coach for my kid. And
I see.
And I saw Jamie, and I remember thinking, did I ask him about Draper?
Yeah.
And I went back through my text messages, and I saw that I did.
You're well connected in the world of tennis. You're well connected in every sport, as far as I see. Djokovic, interesting choice of words here. Now, watch some of this. He had a 4-set win over France's Alexander Muller last night. Young kid Muller did well, Simon, but Djokovic, his strength and his power and experience shone through. But he had been struggling with stomach pain during the second set. And it's the words that he used to describe how he got through it that I thought maybe some of the most cynical, like me, might jump upon. So we've done that. This was Djokovic.
To be quite frank, went from feeling my absolute best for set and a half to my absolute worst for about 45 minutes, whether it was a stomach bug or I don't know what it is, but yeah, just struggle with that. The energy kind of kicked back after some doctor's miracle pills. I managed to finish the match on a good note, let's say.
Miracle pills.
I mean, I've got to say, first and foremost, something that really irritates me is this endless necessity to have players interviewed on court after every single game. I don't know where it's crept in. I mean, once upon a time, you had the players interviewed after they won or lost a final. Yeah. Now it's after every turn of the wheel, and I think it's a bit absurd.
Well, and the public address system as well. I mean, and the crowd sort of, shall I go, shall I stay, shall I listen, shall I not?
I think it's overkill. But listen to what he said. I'm currently listening to Andre Agassi's book, Open, and he talks about magic drinks that he has. In terms of his coach gave him 3 different drinks. One was for recovery, one was for rehydration, another was for energy, and he referred to it as magic drinks.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean,
magic drinks, miracle pills.
Well, yeah, because ultimately these people concoct perfectly legal component parts to be able to give them to rehash if it's rehydration, if it's pain somewhere, or if it's energy. So we can be dark and portentous about it if we want to, or we can accept the fact that these guys consider these things to be magic drinks because they reinvigorate them. Right. And there's nothing more than that. I mean,
let's be dark and I've never been pretentious.
I know some of the best ways to hide is in plain sight, but I think that would be ridiculous, don't you?
No, I agree, Simon, but at this particular time when we leap upon anything, what are you using to help you get through your performance? Oh, a miracle drink, yeah, okay. Or a magic potion.
We don't. We leap upon people failing drugs tests. And then we go, okay, let's work this one backwards. We don't look at people. I don't know about you. If I see a player's performance, if I see a cricketer that's developed and got quicker over the next, one summer to the next, I don't suddenly say, I wonder what he's been up to. I think he might have been practicing hard and playing hard. Yeah. And ultimately, you know, in this world and this age of nutrition,
Sure.
of elixirs that enhance people's performances in every walk of life, and every day we're seeing constant people suggesting that you should take this particular brand of homeopathic medicine, or this particular brand of energy drink, this particular brand of enhancements.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be that somehow or another that involves an illegal
No, I
substance.
agree with you, but it's just the wording. You know, like if you say to a boxer, so how did you make the weight? How did you manage to make the weight today? Miracle pills. Really? What are they? We'd be on it. Of course we would be.
Yes, sure, because we would associate miracle pills with, say, Dexy's Midnight Runners, that once upon a time were the drugs of choice in the 70s and 60s when people wanted to lose weight quickly, didn't they? So we might have associated with Dexedrine, but not necessarily. That would be a bit more... But for someone saying it's a miracle pill on a tennis court...
Right, we'll let it go for the time being. There's no indication of any wrongdoing, of course there isn't.
I think we're kicking up dust and splattering ourselves.
I want your opinion on this. This is a controversial figure in the world of tennis. Number 3 seed, Alexander Zverev.
Yeah.
He was beaten 7-6, 6-7, 6-3, 6-7, 6-4... God, that was a marathon, by the Frenchman Arthur Rinderknecht. But post-game, he claimed mentally he was all over the place. This was Zverev.
I would say more mental, probably. It's funny, I feel very alone out there at times. I struggle mentally. I've been saying that I've struggled since after the Australian Open. Don't know, trying to find ways to kind of get out of this hole, but I keep kind of finding myself back in it in a way. And yeah, I don't know. I feel, generally speaking, quite alone in life at the moment, which is a feeling that is not very nice.
How are you going to address these feelings? Are you going to, I don't know whether you do talk therapy or not, or whatever?
Maybe for the first time in my life I probably need it. I've been through a lot of difficulties. I've been through a lot of difficulties in the media. I've been through a lot of difficulties in life generally. I've never felt this empty before. Just lacking joy. Just lacking joy in everything that I do. And it's not necessarily about tennis, just lacking joy outside of tennis as well. Even when I'm winning, even when I'm winning matches like in Stuttgart or Halle, it's not necessarily like a feeling that I used to get where I was happy over the moon. I felt motivated to keep going. It's not there right now for me, which again is the first time in my life which I'm feeling.
That was very brutal. That was very honest, wasn't it?
Well, that's the first time both you and I have heard that.
Very honest.
Sometimes I hear some of the audio that we're going to play in the show before we come to air. This morning, I hadn't heard that. I'm hearing it for the first time. Just lacking joy in everything that I do.
He's struggling, isn't he?
It's not necessarily about tennis, just lacking joy outside of tennis as well. Struggling, Simon.
Well, he's struggling.
Now, of course, if I can paint a picture briefly, last year a court case for allegedly assaulting his ex-girlfriend was terminated after a settlement was reached. Now, over the last couple of years, Zverev has been dealing with domestic abuse allegations made against him.
Which he's always maintained his innocence on.
Right.
And so you have to take these. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is some people can find a respite in what they're doing. Some people can find a distraction. I've been in circumstances in my life where doing something, keeping yourself busy, is a distraction from the reality of certain challenges outside of your professional life and your personal life. I can relate to it very, very succinctly. But if you can't even find any solace when you're focused, I mean, tennis is a lonely sport. Nick Kyrgios, any individual sport can be a lonely sport because in the end of the day, you're not part of a team. The team is there to support you and to cater for your every need. But in the end, it comes down to you. And so much of the game in tennis and so much of the game in golf is mental.
Yeah.
Because you're competing as much against yourself as you are against your opponent. It's you that can control whether you can hit a first serve in or not. And so for him to be so seemingly bereft and so prepared to show his backside is to the world, because he's saying how difficult he feels about this, the fact he might have to go into therapy and all these things. Now, of course, he's coming off the back of a loss, so he's being probably even more...
Should he even have been playing?
Well, only he can work that out for himself. If he felt that the best thing for him to do is to play tennis, to be able to give himself some solace. I mean, the challenges in life, I'm always curious as to why people that bring allegations that are so serious want to settle them, because if you want to bring an allegation against somebody, surely you want to hear them answer in court and be consequence for their behaviour rather than settle it. That's maybe a very broad perspective. I'm not suggesting that the allegations were right, but they were settled.
No, you're right. He's always maintained his innocence.
And he disputed them. So imagine in the same way that perhaps Prince Andrew had to settle something, lots of people think he only settled it because of the downsides of the circumstances around it endlessly going on in the media, it is a very difficult world to be in the public domain where you're accused of something, you honestly don't believe that you're guilty of it, but the world's made an assumption on your behalf.
Yes.
And then, of course, you're then public enemy number one. And things like domestic abuse are very difficult allegations to prove for anybody that's been on the receiving end.
Well, that's right.
But also, if you happen to be innocent of it, they are so damning, and so they stick with you. Now, for him, he's obviously, I would imagine, that all of his challenges are the fruits of this particular poisonous tree. If he's done these things, then he deserves to be in a difficult position. If he hasn't done these things and the world is pouring down on him, then you can see that coming through, can't you?
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
he might be the world's greatest actor that's feeling very sorry for himself and is a victim, but the only person that's really a victim is the person that he abused. Or he may well be the victim of something and ultimately is struggling dramatically with what you heard and what you very rarely hear. Is the open workings of an elite athlete's mind for the world to see, almost a controlled, sanguine meltdown.
That's right. It was a tough listen.
Yeah,
it really was a tough listen. Just a reminder, British and Irish Lions face off against Queensland Reds in the third warm-up game today. Kick-off at 11 o'clock. Full live exclusive commentary. Head over to talkSPORT 2 for that. We'll update you here with Simon and myself throughout the morning, of course, as we hope the Lions can get another win before that really starts in earnest. Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
Plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
on talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. No ifs, no buts. If you smoke, bin your butts.
I've come to like this feature. Keep Britain tidy. Do you know what? I think about that every day when I walk through London Bridge in the morning and I see how it was left the night before. Anyway, that's just me. We discuss a topic and then we decide whether or not it's bin-worthy or whether or not it stays out the bin. And this morning, I'm talking about club rivalry, tribalism. Should that ever get in the way, Simon, of doing a good deal? And my God, you did a few deals in your time in football. Most of them, I'm pretty sure, would be pretty damn good as well. But here's the thing. Did you ever consider, or did you ever actually carry out the sale of a player with a rival, a perceived rival? Did you ever do a player transaction deal? Did you ever sell or buy a player from the likes of Millwall or Charlton?
Yeah, I always felt that it was important to help Millwall survive financially by buying some of their players. I bought Darren Ward from them. I bought Tony Craig from them. A couple of £1 million spent there, which back in the day would have been reasonable money for Millwall. I'm quite happy to sell some of my old rubbish to my rivals if I could. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a very tribalistic business.
Yeah.
And you can't take the rules of engagement from another business and just say that actually you disassociate yourself. And of course, if you're an owner that was a fan, then you're going to have some of that in the back of your little brain, the mentality that exudes from the terraces.
So did you? You did?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
To some extent.
Right.
But you also, you look at things pragmatically. But I would buy players from rivals because if I wanted to play and the manager wanted to play, I mean, we tried to buy Bobby Zamora from Brighton, which is a major rival, but he was too much of a snivelling coward to come and play for Palace. He was worried about the reaction and the blowback for him at the time.
Morning, Bobby.
Yeah, good morning. I told him that when he came on once, and I told him that, which he didn't much like. But it's true. And that's what they were saying.
Well, the reason I'm asking you, selling to your rivals, does fan sentiment come into it? There's tribalism amongst the supporters, of course, but is there tribalism in the boardroom? And if there is, should there be? Now, the reason I'm asking, Arsenal confirmed the signing of Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa for $5 million. Now, the Kepa transfer means that Arsenal have now signed a player from Chelsea in 6 of the last 7 seasons. Kepa follows David Luiz, Willian, Jorginho, Kai Havertz, Raheem Sterling in a swapping for West London for North. So, should tribalism or the fact that a near neighbour is a competitor, should that ever come into it?
But every team that you sell to, if they're in the same division as you, is a competitor, right?
Yeah.
So there's always that edge to things. And there's a manufactured rivalry, and then there's a deep-seated rivalry. So if you look at, say, Chelsea and Arsenal, that's a rivalry being brought up over the last 20-odd years because Chelsea have been so predominant in English football. But it's not a deep-seated dislike, say as there is between perhaps Chelsea and Tottenham. They dislike one another intensely, from what I understand. So, but from that metric, how many players are getting something? Now, we've seen a few go back between Chelsea and Tottenham. We saw William Gallas, didn't we? Didn't he go from Chelsea to Tottenham? Wasn't it something like that?
He's been everywhere, and Arsenal.
But I think again, it depends upon the ownership models. When you've got ownerships now that are from the far-flung corners of the world, they won't feel it. They'll look at the business side of things. If you've got, there's only a few real raging rivalries. That absolutely prohibit common sense. I remember years ago, I think Liverpool, Gabriel Heinze was at Manchester United. And Liverpool wanted him, and an intermediary got in touch with me to try and get me to buy Gabriel Heinze from Palace. They'd then flip it out and send him to Liverpool. And I remember talking to David Gill about it and said, this is what's going on. So just be mindful, and by the way, you owe me one. Because that was a mentality to get around a rivalry.
And he went to Liverpool.
But he didn't go through Liverpool. He didn't go through
Palace.
Through Palace,
right?
So that whether they found a different mechanism to do it at the time, that they approached me to do it and use me as a gatekeeper, which didn't seem much sense because we just got relegated. So it didn't seem like a deal that Gabriel Heinze would be wanting to do anyway.
You said a plain no,
but no, because I also thought I didn't like the way that the agent was operating.
Right.
But I think we're in this day and age where you've got how many deals are you going to see between Arsenal and Tottenham? How many deals are you going to see between the major rivals in football clubs?
Well, we might see one that will spark a lot of chat, and chat of not of the good sort. West Ham fans, some of them are balking on social media big time at the idea that the West Ham board, Mr. Sullivan, would even entertain the prospect of doing business with Tottenham in a transfer over Mohamed Kudus. Now, this is gathering pace. Kudus had a good season last season, caught the eye.
Canuti went between the two clubs, didn't he?
Yeah, but hang on. They're not having it. Many of the West Ham fans on social media that I have seen are saying, are you joking? Do not dare sell Kudus to Tottenham. And it might happen in a deal that would be worth $60 million to West Ham.
But they're not having it because they don't like Sullivan as well. Right? So the mix of Sullivan being in the mix So, I mean, I look at this and say, well, why are you so offended? Why are you so offended specifically? Are you offended at the transfer? Are you offended at the transfer going to Spurs? There's no massive rivalry between West Ham and Tottenham, is there? They're London football clubs. They're both in the same division. But is there this massive rivalry? I don't recall there being one.
We might put that out there, put it to the test this morning.
Do you know any happy hammers?
We should ask a happy hammer out there.
Winston on.
I mean, are you one of the West Ham fans this morning who has been on social media saying, do not, over my dead body, allow this to happen? West Ham could well sell Mohamed Kudus, who is a good player and had a good season, to Tottenham in a deal that would be worth 60 million. Are you one of the West Ham fans that are saying, no, not to them, or not at all? 03717 223344 81089. Kudus, interestingly, Simon, would be the first West Ham player to join Tottenham since Scott Parker back in 2011. So it's not something that's been happening a lot, that's for sure.
But that might tell you something about where West Ham have been as a football club.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of players. I mean, obviously there's been some good players in there that have gone on to other places, like Dimitri Payet, who was a bit of a rebel, wasn't he, went out the door. But maybe Tottenham haven't coveted any of their players. Tottenham were a bigger club than West Ham.
Right. So this idea that you don't sell to a neighbour or a rival, do we put this one in the bin? Is this a nonsense issue?
I think it probably, on the commercial world that we live in now, is probably more nonsense.
It's going in the bin.
Valuable.
It's bin worthy, and that's all thanks to Keep Britain Tidy. But are you a West Ham fan who would say no, not Kudus to Tottenham, even if it brings in your club 60 million? Give us a call, 03717 223344.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. No ifs, no buts. If you smoke, bin your butts.
Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made a profit for Real Madrid. He set up the only goal in their 1-0 win over Juve, sending the Galacticos into the quarter-finals of the Club World Cup. That victory banked the club an extra £10 million. But will Trent be first choice when Dani Carvajal returns in a few months? Spanish football expert Terry Gibson has been speaking to talkSPORT.
Carvajal is a better defender, and he does give you something going forward. I don't think there's any doubt that Alexander-Arnold's strength is going forward, and he's probably better at putting the crosses in and the diagonal passes.
Elsewhere at Wimbledon, Coco Gauff says she must change her game on the grass to compete in the future. The French Open champion lost in straight sets in the first round yesterday. Today, Emma Raducanu faces 2023 Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, and British qualifier Joe Tarver takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Up at Birmingham, England start their second test against India today, and we're hoping for another classic. Captain Ben Stokes says he had to lie down in a darkened room after last week at Headingley, but he can't wait to return to battle at Edgbaston, particularly against the irresistible Rishabh Pant.
Even though he's my opposition, I absolutely love watching Rishabh play cricket. I love the way he takes it on in all formats of the game.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Now, the wait is finally over. The reunion of the century starts this weekend. Oasis, and you can see them. Oasis Live 25 is sold out. talkSPORT can get you in. That's not all. Alongside the tickets for the gig in Manchester on July the 19th, you'll be put up in a hotel, $5,000 in your back pocket, completely tax-free. Listen up. Here's what you need to know.
All right, arcades, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m, and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a TalkSPORT limited promotion run on TalkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Sorted. Just a reminder, British and Irish Lions continue their tour down under. The third warm-up game, it's about to get underway in about half an hour. This time they're up against Queensland Reds. Kickoffs at 11. Full exclusive commentary over on talkSPORT 2. So you get the whole game on talkSPORT 2. Alfred Reynolds is out there for us. He'll be updating us, of course, and you will not miss a trick with us right here with myself and Simon before we go at 1 o'clock. Gabriel Heinze, I'm being reliably informed, never played for Liverpool, Jim. Get it right. He's that message sender is right, Simon. He went to Real Madrid, didn't he?
Yeah,
if I remember rightly.
I thought you might have known something that I'd missed, but yeah, the story I was telling was relevant.
Yeah,
that was the transaction that was sought to be had.
Many people saying to me, Mohamed Kudus to Tottenham. Yeah, there's one. Jim, I'm a West Ham fan. I would drive him there. 60 million. Are you kidding? Didn't have a great season last season. So maybe West Ham fans are not as up in arms about selling to a London rival. If it is a case
on our part,
if it's confected outrage, if it is a case that he's going to end up at Tottenham in a £60 million deal, we shall see. Though we shall see. There's time certainly in this window. Simon, would it be somewhat ironic if a World Cup in the Western world ended up causing more human rights debates than the one in the Middle East?
No.
Well,
because we self-flagellate in the West, we delight in telling everyone how awful we are when actually we're not at all. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
The reason I'm mentioning this is this: after all his frolicking and sucking up to the US President Donald Trump in recent months, has the FIFA President Gianni Infantino opened the door to football's greatest show on earth being hijacked by activists. Is he fair game after dancing with the devil? Let me put some meat in the bones of this. Infantino has received a letter signed by over 90 civil society groups, the majority of which are based in the US, expressing deep concern about immigration policies and enforcement measures in the US and their potential impact on the World Cup in 2026.
Let
me finish. The letter urges FIFA to use its influence to call on the administration of President Trump to guarantee the fundamental rights of the millions of football fans who will seek to attend the World Cup in the US next summer. Now, the groups reference Infantino's high-profile engagements with the White House of late and his recent trip to Saudi Arabia and Qatar when he accompanied Trump at an investment summit as evidence of his proximity to the US president. So you can't deny, no one can deny, that Infantino has been cozying up big time to Trump.
He cozies up to the Qataris. He cozies up to the Russians. This is what he does when he's got a tournament on their soil. Isn't it funny that we had the two?
It was at Trump's inauguration.
We had the two professors because they've got two massive tournaments coming up, and they're two worldwide stages that Trump would like to be seen on. So of course he's going to be there, and whether I like it or not, it's a commercial reality and a pragmatic reality of the circumstances. Isn't it funny that we had these two intellectual professors talking about the circumstances and talking about how the World Cup was going to be amplified by Trump to highlight his immigration policies, when in fact what they're going to do is amplify their resistance through football fans going to the World Cup. So the argument is, and let's just make sure we're right on this, Trump was elected with an electoral college majority to be able to enforce the immigration policies of his country. People in that country don't like it, and so they're going to use the world stage.
Yeah, but the professors took you to task on that big time, didn't they?
Of course they did.
For those who missed it,
of course they did.
We had two New York professors on the other day, and they locked horns with Simon on this because obviously with a huge influx of visitors to the US, the immigration issue in the US, which is highly visible at the moment with these ICE individuals in the street, putting people in the backs of vehicles, it's going to be extremely visible next summer, and it's going to be a huge talking point, as the professors made clear to Simon just the other day. Have a listen.
You've got a democratically elected president brought in on a mandate specifically around immigration, taking hardline policy because he means it, and you're suggesting that ultimately the rest of the world should boycott that on the back of that. I think it's nonsense.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference, okay, between a country being a human rights violator, which every country in the world, right, has a track record. There's no country that's free of any human rights violations.
Correct.
I personally I have not called for the boycott of Qatar. I have not called, even though I despise their policies. I think they're very problematic.
But lots of voices did.
Here, what's happening, I'm not done. Here, what's happening is that he's using this specifically as a platform to amplify these policies. It's the opposite of sports washing. If the Guardian
that's how you see it. But that's how you see it.
We're not Guardian journalists. Actually, we're CUNY professors. But
Fantastic.
if the Guardian editor who had allowed us to write, we had actually called it sports dirting, where it's a use of this platform to amplify certain policies. Now, you might think those are good policies. That's fine. That is your political position. But what I'm talking about are empirical facts, which is the fact of the fan experience, the fact of what's happening outside the stadiums. And those facts do not fit your narrative which is, by the way, a Trump narrative. You're actually repeating his talking points.
Now,
see, the interesting point of that was, right, just before we go on to what you're going to say, the empirical data that Heckel and Keckel relied upon, empirical data is a case study based upon historic reference. Their empirical data was 2 days of the World Club Championship. 2 days. Because when we did that interview, the World Club Championship had been going on for 2 days. So their empirical evidence, which they were so very proud to suggest to me, counteracted my argument about Trump and his attitude and outlook and what football fans were going to experience, was based upon 2 days of football attendances, which is not empirical data, is anecdotal. So it's utter nonsense. They don't like Trump's policies.
Infantino has had a letter from these 90 civil society groups.
Yeah.
In it, there's a line: increased immigration enforcement actions have contributed to widespread fear and uncertainty. That's now. can you imagine how the intensity around this debate will be so ramped up?
Background noise.
When the games start in the US next year.
Infantino would have got hold of that letter and filed it under miscellaneous.
Well, it wasn't background noise in Qatar, was it?
Well, it was, because it didn't stop anything. It didn't achieve anything. Background noise. Empty vessels making loads of noise. The tournament went on. Everyone who went there, even the hypocrites that were outraged by it, like Lineker, were there, that had worked for Al Jazeera before, yet being offended by what was happening over there. The tournament went ahead. They didn't play the opening ceremony on the BBC. Who cares? And ultimately, a tournament was raved about in football terms.
Infantino got caught up in the whole thing.
But the tournament...
In Qatar, he stood up and addressed everybody and said, "Today I feel gay." He's going to be. What's he going to say in the US?
I can't legislate. Today I feel like an illegal immigrant. I don't know if he's going to say that, right? The fact of the matter is,
he's capable of that.
Trump's policies are the policies of a country that he's been elected. These people that are objecting to him, I suspect, are ideologically not aligned with him. Whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, there's lots about Trump that I do like. There's lots about Trump that I don't like. What I do like is if you've got a policy on illegal immigration, which a lot of countries should have, then you should be able to enforce it. And he's enforcing it. When you talk about the 12 countries that are banned currently, they'll probably all be in a situation in a year's time when they won't be. The fact of the matter is, there's bloody good reasons why these 12 countries are banned. Most of it is because they've got 60 to 70% recidivism on visa abuse, i.e. people going into that country and overstaying their visas. So you should enforce border policies. You should protect your country. You should have illegal immigration and illegal aliens in your country. And I think Trump is right to do it. Now, even
though many of the immigrants will be working in the World Cup, during the World Cup, in host cities doing a decent job.
But that's a different argument entirely. They shouldn't be working... If the policy of the country, as put forward by a democratically elected president, without trying to delve into politics too much, is that you cannot work in a country if you're an illegal immigrant, that's the end of the discussion. And all these bleeding hearts liberals in America that are probably Democrats, that are ideologically and every other way opposed to Trump, are now going to do the very thing that they say Trump is. Trump is not using the World Cup to amplify his immigration policies. Trump is already doing it.
He's already doing it, but the intensity around it is going to rise and rise and rise come the World Cup next year.
The intensity around it by those that have a different agenda is going to rise and rise and rise. And the bottom line is that, quite frankly, in this world that we live in, I would quite like to know, in an international event where terrorism is at the front of a lot of people's minds right now, certainly the terrorists, I'd like to make sure that the authorities know who's inside football stadiums and who I'm sitting next to. I might gain some comfort from that. And the only people that need to be fearful of Trump's policies are the illegal immigrants and these other individuals that are sat there with their ideological differences. I mean, we didn't campaign against Qatar. We didn't campaign against Russia. Oh, you didn't, did you? So you're talking about a democratically elected president. No, I'm talking about these two professors that came on with the holier-than-thou attitude and their empirical data that went back 48 hours. I'm looking at it and saying, so you didn't say anything about the injustices in Qatar. You didn't say anything about Russia that's gone on and invaded in Europe, is potentially causing war in Europe. But now, because Trump's running an immigration policy that you don't like and you don't like Trump, you're going to use the World Cup to impart your message.
Do you think some of the players will demonstrate?
Of course they will.
Either on or off the field of play at the immigration policies being exercised by Trump?
No, I don't. And when it comes upon them, if they did like last time, we're all for this, yellow card. Oh, maybe not so much.
Well, they weren't afraid to message in Qatar.
They were, until they got a yellow card.
Anyway, we'll see the numbers who show up for the World Cup, because there has been evidence of reduced inbound travel to the US. A 40% reduction in travel to the US at the moment. We'll see how it goes.
I'm sure there is.
We'll see how it looks.
I'm sure.
I mean, who fancies walking into a stadium and then you're questioned as to should you or should you not be in this country at this time?
You're not questioned. You're asked to produce your documentation.
And then you end up, if you're not, you end up in the back of a vehicle.
And you well know, that's propaganda. The fact of the matter is, that's propaganda.
Not in the news. It wasn't propaganda in the news bulletins I watched last night.
Well, there's lots of propaganda.
What do they call it? You end up in alligator Alcatraz.
There's lots of propaganda in the newspapers, and when we dig beneath it and we actually find what's really gone on, it's far different. And there's also some accuracy. I concede that point. But if I'm going into the World Cup, and of course it's for those that want to make this point, because I'm a white cisgender male, according to our little mate in Chicago the other day, it won't affect me, right? But the fact of the matter is, if I'm sat in a stadium, I'm quite happy to be able to produce my papers, knowing that the governance of the country. You go in, hang on, like Arnold Schwarzenegger said the other day. you're a guest in our country. I was a guest in America, and I was afforded a wonderful opportunity to be successful, and I will always remain a guest in America. So we should remind ourselves of that when we go into other countries' environment, specifically a democratic
no one's going to argue with Arnie. But here's the thing: do you not think Infantino, to a degree, has made a rod for his own back here by being so cosy with Trump? So cosy.
Right.
He's almost get a picture with me now. Here he is again. Get a picture with me now.
So what about all of the world leaders around the world? Do you not think all of them are made rod for their own back? Do you not think Keir Starmer bearing his head up Donald Trump's backside and giving him a royal visit is in fact,
well, politicians maybe, that's part of their job.
But he's a politician.
Infantino's the head of FIFA.
He's a politician.
Or is he?
Of course he is.
He runs a game.
Yeah, as a politician, part of being in a position of
he's
great
not
influence.
running a country.
This is a power group. He's not running a country, but there's political requirements of him, political thinking, diplomatic approaches. Look at the way that these big organisations have to be run. They have to be run with diplomacy. Diplomacy is a facet of politics. So with that in mind, Gianni Infantino...
Diplomacy? Did you say diplomacy and Trump in the same breath?
No, but I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Infantino.
Yeah,
so Infantino is having to do that, whether you like it or not. And we all know that Donald Trump is getting smoke blown up his backside by everybody. And sometimes you sit there and go, come on, pack it in. But that's what they do because they recognise the animal that they're dealing with. And so Infantino is no different. His World Cup... The interesting thing is, when we were in Qatar, you and I sat there and went, oh, hang on a second. What FIFA, the Vatican State? They stopped the roads. Everyone's got FIFA regulations, FIFA laws, FIFA this. We were like, you're a football tournament. Yeah. Now, there is some centering back into reality when they go into America because there isn't FIFA like the Vatican State. FIFA are putting on a football tournament in Donald Trump's country.
OK, you'll be pleased to know we're off to Switzerland next. Jim White, Simon Jordan, live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
Plays that villain role very well now. That's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
ideal morning, isn't it? Minutes away now from kick-off. The British and Irish Lions face off against Queensland Reds in their third warm-up game today. Kick-off, as I say, less than 10 minutes from now, 11 o'clock. We'll update you on how the Lions are doing throughout the morning. But if you want full live exclusive commentary, head over to talkSPORT 2. And the best way to listen is to download the talkSPORT app, where you can swipe between talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. I fully expect another 55-6 type win. I hope, Simon.
Well, you'd expect it, wouldn't you? Because ultimately you're playing against far lesser opposition. What you want to see is enough of their players out there to make it competitive, because that was a big argument, wasn't it? The availability. I don't think it's quite as significant at Queensland Reds as it was at Western Province, but notwithstanding it, they've still got players out there that you want to put a mark on.
Sure. So that is down under in Australia. Closer to here, certainly in Europe, in Switzerland. It all gets underway today. The Women's Euros begins today. Let's head out there now, actually. Let's head over to Switzerland. England's open training session is underway, and we're going to be joined by talkSPORT's England reporter Courtney Sweetman-Kirk. Courtney, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, good morning to you both. I'm very well. I'm basking a little bit in the shade, but obviously it's a wonderful day here in Zurich. And the girls, the Lionesses, they're just doing the pre-ab to my left in the gym, and they're just starting to get the boots on and now make their way out for the open training session.
Great stuff. If you're watching YouTube and your smart TV, you will see Courtney basking in the sunshine. Our weather is broken a bit back here, Courtney, but that's by the by. We're pleased actually to get a bit of a cooling off period. So England aiming to defend, Courtney, their 2022 title. Who's the big threat? Is it Spain? Who is it?
Yeah, Spain. Obviously, I think world champions. They faced Spain in the World Cup final over in Australia. So there's no doubt it's Spain, but I think Germany will be a tough test as well. You know, Switzerland, I think player for player, on paper, they don't look like a big test, but who knows what a home Euros might bring. I think we saw that a few years ago with the Netherlands. Sarina Wiegman, our manager now, was then the manager then when she won that. So you never know what a home tournament might bring. But for me, the toughest test will be Spain.
It's an interesting group, Simon.
Are they
England,
better?
France, Netherlands, Wales.
Are they better? Spain, I think there's a perception that England are not where they once were a couple of years ago. Are Spain better than they were than when they beat us in the World Cup?
I think both teams have gone through a bit of a transition. I think Spain are in a really good position, maybe a better position in terms of, I know Bonmati, actually, she's just had viral meningitis, but sort of Alexia Putellas as well. She's really on full form at the moment, so they've got a lot of fantastic players, Spain. I think for us it's a bit different, and I know there's been a lot of noise around Millie Bright and Mary Earps, but for me, I still think we're in a bit better position from the World Cup. There's no doubt about that. I think when we won the Euros, it was an unbelievable time for the Lionesses, for the country, but then you had a lot of retirements, the likes of Ellen White, Jill Scott, Rachel Daly, who are not in the squad. So I think it took a bit of time for a transition, and the World Cup was a little bit too early. Whereas now the Euros, I think we're in a better position than we were at the World Cup in Australia. There's no doubt about that.
So the England group, Courtney, Group D, England, France, who they play on Saturday. That's live on talkSPORT. Netherlands and Wales. What can we expect from Wales in what is new territory for the Welsh girls?
Yeah, I think Wales is going to be a really interesting one, and especially it being the last game. If there is a position maybe where England need to win that or need to get something to qualify, then for Wales you're thinking, right, for us that home nation sort of rivalry, they might think, right, we've got a massive moment here to maybe take something away from England to stop them qualifying. So that could play into it for sure. But for them, Jess Fishlock in particular, in terms of 160 plus caps at the moment, she's waited all her career for this. The same with Sophie Ingle. So I think there's maybe initially a thought process from the outside of they're here to make up the numbers, but I don't think that's the case. They want to come. They obviously want to enjoy it, but I think they also want to make a statement with it being their first major tournament, but they obviously don't want it to be their last. So I think Wales is quite an interesting one, and I think they will be undervalued throughout the tournament.
Excuse my ignorance, but how have England gone against Wales in previous encounters?
In previous encounters, overwhelmingly, England have been very successful. They have been the better team for a lot of years now, Simon. So you know, as I say, going into that on paper, you would expect the fact that England are going to win, but who knows? In a major tournament, it's very.
The reason why I mentioned it, Connie,
is talking about the heat as well.
The reason why I mentioned the England-Wales clash, because so much was expected in the men's tournament between England and Wales, and all the home nation mentality came up, and Wales were a damp squib. So I'm just curious to see whether there's a real jeopardy in that particular fixture rather than an imagined one because it's got home nation status attached to it.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head with that. It could quite be that, as I say, in terms of the gulf in quality. In my opinion, it's massive. I think Wales actually the lowest ranked team in the competition, if I remember rightly, at this point. So yes, there is a massive gulf in quality and experience. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, as at home in the media, we like to talk up a home nations clash, but it remains to be seen what that will mean. And obviously, once we've got sort of the France and the Netherlands game out of the way, then it'll be interesting whether there actually is anything riding on that game, or by that point England could have qualified, and it could be a game where maybe Serena Wiegman gives minutes to different players in the squad that we're probably not used to seeing in the starting 11.
It's funny, Courtney, whenever Simon talks about Wales, certainly some of the Wales fans that I've seen, they don't like him. Do you remember that? You encountered a few in Qatar. You should have seen him, Courtney. His bottle went completely.
No, it's because I wiped my shoes with a Welsh shirt because Hal Robson-Kanu was getting on my nerves in the studio. That's why.
Courtney, thank you very much indeed. We shall return to Courtney. Courtney's out there, of course, for the tournament. talkSPORT's England reporter, Courtney Sweetman-Kirk. And we look forward to that. England open their campaign against the French on Saturday. It's live on talkSPORT. And as we've been saying there, in that same group, Group D, we have Netherlands and the Welsh. Good luck to the Welsh as well. Good luck to the Lions. It's about to kick off. British and Irish Lions face off against Queensland Reds, the third warm-up game, and it's live exclusive commentary. For that, head over to talkSPORT too. But if you like, and we hope you like, stay with us live on talkSPORT. Jim White, Simon Jordan, coming up to 11.
Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made a profit for Real Madrid. He set up the only goal in their 1-0 win over Juve, sending the Galacticos into the quarter-finals of the Club World Cup. That victory banked the club an extra £10 million. But will Trent be first choice when Dani Carvajal returns in a few months? Spanish football expert Terry Gibson has been speaking to talkSPORT.
Carvajal is a better defender, and he does give you something going forward. I don't think there's any doubt that Alexander-Arnold's strength is going forward, and he's probably better at putting the crosses in and the diagonal passes and set pieces and stuff like that, taking of direct free kicks. So there are differences between the two. I think just Dani Carvajal just edges it.
Elsewhere at Wimbledon, Coco Gauff says she must change her game on the grass to compete in the future. The French Open champion lost in straight sets in the first round yesterday. Today, Emma Raducanu faces 2023 Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, and British qualifier Joe Tarver takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Up at Birmingham, England start their second test against India today, and we're hoping for another classic. Captain Ben Stokes says he had to lie down in a darkened room after last week at Headingley, but he can't wait to return to battle at Edgbaston, particularly against the irresistible Rishabh Pant.
Yeah, look, even though he's my position, I absolutely love watching Rishabh play cricket. I love the way he takes it on in all formats of the game. You know, he's come under. He's got a bit of stick in his time, but like that type of talent, yeah, just, you know, when you let that type of talent be free, that's what can happen. You know, last week.
And with Thomas Frank preparing for his first season at Spurs, Jason Cundy says the club must improve on last season's league performances, calling them a disgrace. He's got this message for the Tottenham boss.
Be better, but be much better. Be where Spurs should be. Spurs are a top half team, minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, get in the Europa Conference. I think anything less than European football is a failure. Genuinely feels a failure.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good morning, everybody. July the 2nd, Wednesday morning. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. The weather has broken a bit here in London, but hope it's good wherever you're listening all around the UK and beyond. We needed a break from that heat, did we not? Having said that, we hope it returns fairly soon. A lot to get through. We shall be heading out to Turkey later on this morning. We've been to Switzerland. We've been all over the place. We're about to go down under to Australia. But over in Turkey is where we'll find Spencer Oliver, and the great and the good from the world of boxing are gathering there. I mentioned Australia. Let's get down under right now, because the Lions have kicked off against the Queensland's Reds. It's their third warm-up game. Live commentary on talkSPORT 2. In fact, with no further ado, let's dip into that. And hear now from Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay.
He's slipping. Right, let's have another go. Kalani Thomas is pointing at the number 8. This is not going to be needed to be hooked. It's put in, and the Lions haven't pushed straight. Will Stewart's gone in at the angle, says James Coleman. Therefore, the Reds will have a penalty 5 metres out from their own line. Welcome along to talkSPORT listeners joining us here on talkSPORT 2. We played 4.25 minutes of the game. And it is the Reds nil, British and Irish Lions nil. British and Irish Lions have had a pretty decent start though, so we'll get some early thoughts from our co-commentator Ben.
I think that's a poor decision early on from James Stolman at the scrum. He's got the call on the far side, and Porter does go down, but definitely on the near side, on the referee's side. There was a step out from Aidan Ross, and he ran round Will Stewart. The Reds get away with that one, clear their lines, and now they have the throw-in that Chitoji gets his hand up to.
Well, the Reds have won it, but it's not cleanly. They've had to go to ground. Itoje got a hand into the line out, couldn't win it cleanly. Chesson was also putting pressure on, and they're going to go into the front. Will Stewart has just driven backwards the Reds ball carrier. So they've given up a couple of metres, but they have control of the ball. Kalani Thomas is rolling his studs over the ball to get it back to the back of the ruck and puts the kick up right-footed. Tommy Freeman's underneath this, takes it well, but then loses control of it on halfway. Reds have made a territorial gain of 30 metres there, and again, just maybe a little bit of a greasy ball. That is a catch that Tommy Freeman would expect to take 99 times out of it. Actually, he'd expect to take it 100 times out of it.
Well, that was Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay describing the live action. The British and Irish Lions up against Queensland Reds. Just over 5 minutes gone, still no scoring in that. We'll update you, Simon and myself, throughout the morning. But if you want full live exclusive commentary with the boys, with Andrew and Ben, head over to talkSPORT 2. The best way to listen is to download the talkSPORT app, where you can swipe between talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. From Australia, let's head closer to home to SW19. Of course, Wimbledon, Simon, very much underway. I'm delighted to say a bit of a treating story here. We're joined now by former British tennis number 1, 3 times Wimbledon semi-finalist, 2 times US Open doubles winner, and former GB Davis Cup captain, Roger Taylor. And alongside Roger, as a friend of this show, the tennis broadcaster, that and a lot more, Marcus Buckland. Roger, Marcus, good morning.
Good morning, yeah.
Morning.
How are you?
Great. Marcus, good to see you. And you, of course, Roger. Simon and I were just talking in the commercial break about your exploits, Roger, in the world of tennis. And you have an autobiography out, The Man Who Saved Wimbledon. And it's been written with Marcus. In the book, we see how you, Roger, went from a working class kid in Sheffield to reaching 3 Wimbledon semi-finals and becoming a 2 times US Open doubles champion. My goodness, how do you reflect on that time, Roger?
Amazing time. However I got through, I don't know. But I played tennis locally. My mother played in the local park. I had someone to hit tennis balls with. And I kept playing and improving. You know, every time I played, I could do it a little bit better. And so that always got me, positive. I enjoyed competition. And I played in local places like Buxton, Bradford, Leeds, Sheffield, obviously, Hull. And then I never went south until I was 17.
Wow. I mean, it was an unusual route for you, Roger, wasn't it? The way you did it and then ending up down here.
It was, yeah. I mean, obviously the LTA just missed the guy with a bit of talent. I've actually got a letter from the LTA to my mother, who was trying to get me a bit of extra coaching, and the LTA wrote back and said, "Look, this coaching for guys who can really play and are going to be good players." Bye-bye, Mrs. Taylor.
Marcus, chronicles near misses at SW19 and some of Roger's clashes with contemporaries like Laver, Newcombe, Ashe, Borg. You must have loved doing this with Roger.
Oh, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I quite like a bittersweet story, and Roger's is bittersweet. You mentioned Rod Laver, for example. He was the first man to beat Rod Laver at Wimbledon in a decade in 1970. But in 73, that's the year of the boycott, which is a complicated story we go into detail of in the book, and that's why he's called The Man Who Saved Wimbledon. He got to the semi-final. He played Jan Kodesh. He's 5-4 up in the final set. He's a game away from reaching a Wimbledon final. It rains. They go off court for 42 minutes. Roger was about to get in the shower. He thought they weren't going to come back until the next day. And Captain Gibson, who was the referee, suddenly barked, "Taylor, back on court in 5 minutes." And Roger admits he lost his focus. He went back out and he lost 3 games in 8 minutes. Kodesh went on to win the final. Roger would have been a hot favourite to win that final. And we'd be talking about Sir Roger Taylor now, because he would have been the man to bridge the gap between Fred Perry and Andy Murray eventually.
Yeah.
How do you look back in that, Roger?
Again, please?
How do you look back on that time that Marcus has just described?
Yeah, well, amazingly, I'd locked it away, a lot of that stuff. You know, once you lose the match, you 3 or 4 days, 5 days, you can't speak to anybody, but then you fade into the memory. And with Marcus and I working on the book for 18 months, he's brought out a lot of therapeutic stuff, and I look back on it, I realized that the All England Club didn't do me any favors at all. I shouldn't have gone back out. I was number 1 in Britain. I was supporting the club in the boycott, That was my whole being in there. I was number one in Britain and member of the club, supporting my country, you know, and then to be left 42 minutes and go back on court at 8:10 at night when the crowd's gone, most of the crowd has gone home. It was it wasn't a nice thing to do, but Wimbledon, they're a bit special. They've got their own ideas.
Of course. But as Roger has described, Marcus, I mean, it was 1973. It was a significant year. And Marcus, we saw the world of sport and politics clash, and it centered around this Yugoslav player, Niki Pilic. I remember it, of course. And you vividly describe it, don't you, Marcus?
Well, and it's something that until we started doing it again, I don't think Roger fully appreciated how much it damaged his psyche. And actually, on that run to the semi-finals, he played Bjorn Borg in the quarterfinals, and that turned out to be his last singles victory, because throughout 73 there was this big turmoil surrounding the boycott because of Niki Pilic. I won't go into all the details, but 81 professionals pulled out. The newly formed ATP, the Association of Tennis Professionals, put a lot of pressure on all their members and on Roger. But as he said, he was caught in a terrible position. His father, a trade unionist, understood the power of unions. But Roger felt that as the British number one, as a member of the All England club, he had to play. And many of those 81 have not spoken to Roger to this day, including Cliff Drysdale, who he won the US Open doubles with just a year earlier. So it did cost a lot emotionally, didn't it, Roger?
Yes, it did. I mean, you don't see the guys so much until they come back every year at Wimbledon. That's where I used to meet up with everybody. But I'm not bumping into anybody at the moment who's... singing my praises. But a lot of players wanted to play. Marcus, I think you understand that. They got to be a bit militant, where the Americans had all the top players. Jack Kramer was in the front man for them. And they were being heavy-handed with players, saying, you've got to play, you've got to play the boycott. And I was told that by Stan Smith, that I would not play tennis again if I didn't join the boycott. And I said, why not? He said, well, we're going to run the game. And that's what was going to happen. If they had got hold of the game, it would be a totally different game. Maybe Andy wouldn't have had a Wimbledon to win.
Gee, I tell you, I remember it. Simon, you're sitting there listening intently to Marcus and Roger.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a very difficult moment in Roger's career.
I imagine it was. I was going to ask Roger about the personalities that he played with at the time, because one of the things I look at now and enjoyed during when I was younger in the 70s and 80s was the personalities of certain players. And you would have played with players or played against players like the arrival of Jimmy Connors in 74. You'd have played with Ilan Stasi. I mean, when you look at those personalities and you look at overlaying them against the personalities today, how would you compare, Roger?
Well, the thing is that when I came up from the north, I hadn't had a junior career. I didn't get going until, in my first Wimbledon semis was 27, I think, and then the second one was 30. So I was meeting these young guys. Jimmy Connors was 19, Borg was 17. They were all the rising stars, right? The Alcaraz and Sinner coming through right now. And I didn't know them. And then we didn't have this sort of lovely, kissy, cuddling when you lose a match. You know, you got stuck in and you fought hard and you looked him in the eye and you said, right, well done. I'll get you next time. And, I mean, I didn't even know these players. I'd gone court, didn't know them all until I got to Wimbledon. You know, till you met them on centre court or court one or eventually on the main courts, because there's two tournaments running almost at Wimbledon where the guys who never get on centre court, never get on court one, they're playing here this week, but they're making up the whole tournament. But there's a special group that get on centre court. And the only way I got on was I finally got to the last 16 and then I got on centre court. So that was an amazing experience. Never practiced on it, hardly ever seen it. And off you go.
And by the way, we should point out, Simon's mentioning some of those great names. And just to give you an indication of how frosty some relationships were, in 1969, Roger played Bob Hewitt, who was a pretty tough character in Berlin. To cut a long story short, they had a set two at the net. Bob Hewitt said, I'm going to get you afterwards. Roger went, yeah. Went back to the locker rooms. Bob Hewitt came in to get Roger. And eventually, in self-preservation, I wish to add, Roger had to lay him out with a couple of punches. So it wasn't as friendly in those days as it perhaps is today.
Yeah, it's true.
Well done, Roger.
Hewitt and Macmillan, yeah?
Hewitt and Macmillan, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Bob Hewitt was a pretty nasty character. And Simon put that straight at you there, and he sort of would, you know, it was always an incident, always some trouble, swearing at you, you know. Anyway, he did come in the changing room, and I thought I was in trouble. I didn't know where I was going to get out of this one, but I wasn't going to run away. No way. And,
Excellent. I love
so
that.
He came in and he into the locker room and stuck me up almost against the locker. He didn't touch me at that moment, and luckily there were other players there that were witnesses in the end. And I said, "If you touch me, it's on." So he pushed me, and it was on.
A typical unpalatable Australian, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that, yeah.
Listen, here's one for the two of you, Marcus and Roger, just to finish with, guys, and we'll keep it brief. But now, Wimbledon of the moment. What British success stories do you think will unfold, Marcus? Because we've got our fingers crossed here.
Yeah, we were chatting. There are still 10 British players left in the draw, 7 on the men's side, 3 on the women's side. We're going to see Emma Raducanu in action this afternoon. I don't think Roger has great hopes for her against Marketa Vondrousova, who is a former champion here. Of course, you've got Sonny Cartel as well, and Katie Bolter, who's got a very decent-looking draw. And on the men's side, obviously, Roger is he's very close to Jack Draper, because Jack, like Roger, is a lefty. He's made it to 1 Grand Slam semi-final already. And I think you feel he could go even further than you one day here, Roger.
Yeah, Jack Draper looks the part, and he's grown up with these modern players. He's not afraid of them. He's played them as juniors, he's beaten them as juniors, and he's beating a lot of them now. And he's built himself up very strong and very determined, and he's got a great game. I think he'll do well. He has a great chance, but it's back to those last 2 or 3 matches when the nerves are jangling and you've just got to get through and hang in.
Yeah, Roger, none of them can do what you can say you did. You saved Wimbledon, my friend. Thank you so much.
That's right.
Roger Taylor and Marcus Buckland with us live. Marcus, thanks for organising, mate. And Roger's autobiography, The Man Who Saved Wimbledon, it's been written alongside Marcus Buckland. It's a damn good read, and we strongly recommend it. Let's hope, though, that we can get some British success stories to go with that this time around. It's Jim and Simon live on talkSPORT.
Plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally, and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour update on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. Keep control.
Now, we'll be talking football finance in a second with our chum Stefan Borson, who's stopped by and is live in studio with Simon and myself. 20 minutes in to Queensland Reds up against the British and Irish Lions. Let's get an update. Here's Alfie Reynolds. Alfie.
And it's Queensland Reds 7, the Lions 7. Jeff Tumunga Allen scoring the opening try for the Reds from close range, but Tommy Freeman just a moment ago responded for the Lions, finally capitalising on the territory and possession that they've had. He crossed on the right-hand side. Prior to that, Bundy Aki was also held up over the try line for the Lions. It's a step up in terms of competition for them in the opening exchanges. Commentary is with Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay. That's on talkSPORT 2. The score at the moment with 22 minutes played in Brisbane, it's the Reds 7, the Lions 7.
Alfie, thank you very much. And remember, the best way to listen is to download the talkSPORT app. You can swipe between talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. We are live on talkSPORT, Simon and myself. This morning we're joined at this stage, where are we now? Back of 11:15, 11:20. Stefan Borson, FFP expert, that and a whole lot more. Stefan joins us live in studio. Stefan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
This is a busy one. We've got the Women's Euros in Switzerland. We're heading to Turkey soon to speak to Spencer Oliver in the world of boxing. We've got the Lions in action, and we have you. What more do we need? Stefan, tell me. Monday marked all the Premier League clubs' accounting deadline for PSR.
Materially, because they've already got problems for 2 of the prior seasons. And we know from the Everton case, the way it is likely to work is that any penalty that you take for previous seasons is taken into account when you then look at subsequent seasons that are connected to the same breach.
Right.
So Leicester is a very complicated situation with multiple moving parts until it settles down from the various cases that they've got. So I just use them as a caveat. But I think everybody else, and of course Villa were the big one that was anticipated to have a challenge. And sure enough, they did what we expected them to do, which is on the women's team.
So we'll get to that in a second. Maybe apart from Leicester, have other clubs learnt from the past?
Yeah, everybody's obviously desperate to avoid points deduction. And points deductions to focus the mind on PSR. And then laid on top of that, of course, the magical workings of Chelsea's accountants and lawyers have doubly focused the mind in terms of finding ways that you can avoid a breach. And when we were last talking a couple of weeks ago, we said PSR, following Chelsea's women's team sale, PSR is dead. And sure enough, this confirms it.
So Chelsea sold the women's team for what, 200 million?
Yeah.
Aston Villa sold their women's team for 55 million. Women's football teams deciphering that it's fair market value. How do you do that?
Well, very difficult. I mean, it's like, how do you value anything? And we could sit in this room and the three of us can have a different view of the value of women's football as a whole, individually, a player, the tournament. Some of us will be interested in the Euros that are happening right now, and some of us will think that the stadium will be filled with free tickets. So how do you value anything? But in this situation, Chelsea have gone out there and said, well, we are going to value ourselves at a premium point, the multiple that compares with Angel City in the US. We're going to also go to the US and find a third party that's prepared to validate our valuation. In fact, he came in higher than the valuation that they put it through the books. And that gives the Premier League no choice but to approve the valuation at 200 million. I think Aston Villa's perspective is slightly different in that the club is clearly not as successful as Chelsea women's, clearly is some way behind in its evolution as a kind of property. And probably when they went to market to try and find a third party, the valuation that they were given by third parties was at a lower level. And when it was at a lower level, they thought, well, look, we don't need to take a chance. We only need, let's say, 55 from a PSR perspective. So let's go with 55.
On that. And do the Premier League, Stefan, take those amounts and put it to a panel?
Well, they have to go.
Or do they just accept them?
No, there's a valuation process. So it has to be fair market value, and there is a whole process around fair market value. So they will usually seek third-party validation for that valuation. They'll ask for the clubs to give them effectively their paperwork. So Aston Villa will have had to go to their auditors and had a conversation with the auditors to say, well, we're going to put this through the books for this current year. You're going to need to check it as part of the audit process that's coming up in the autumn. But this is what we're thinking. Just confirm we're not going to have a problem, and you're going to sign it off, because what we don't want is a problem down the line where the auditors say it's not fair market value, and then they go to the league, and the league goes through a similar sort of process.
I see. Crystal Palace fans asking me, Stephen Borson's in studio, what is the latest in the John Textor situation? We're going to do that. Stefan's going to stay on the other side of the upcoming 11:30 break. The Club World Cup, Stefan, what has been value for money for City and Chelsea in terms of numbers thus far? I mean, City went out, we know that. What did they walk away with? What might Chelsea?
Yeah, well, they're both actually about 50. So because City got a higher initial payment, City got around 35 just for turning up. Then City won 3 games. That's $2 million a game. And then they got through to the round of 16. So they did about $50 million. And because Chelsea had a slightly lower entry fee and also won 2 games, not 3, they're also, now that they've qualified for the round of 16 and the quarterfinal, they're around the same as City. So around about $50 million. But of course, if you look at Chelsea's half of the group, there's a pretty good chance Chelsea can get to the final. Now, Chelsea, if they get to the final, will get about another 40. And if they can win again, they'll get about another 40 on top. So the total that you can win, if I've done my maths correctly on that, well, I may have overshot it slightly, but the total they can win is $125. Right? So Chelsea, if they win it, if they get to the final, they get about 95, maybe a little bit, slightly under, maybe 85. And if they win it, they get another 40. So
lovely. Nice money if you can get it, isn't it?
It's brilliant. I mean, you just have to slightly concern yourself with what impact does it have next season? Well, that's the great unknown. And also, don't forget the costs. Now, most people forget the costs here. They're not getting any gate receipts. All the gate receipts are going off to FIFA and the organisers. So this is not a situation where you've got a game in your stadium. You're not getting any revenue there. And you've got a huge amount of costs. These teams are taking maybe 70 people, maybe 5 staff for a month to the US. I mean, that is costing them an absolute fortune.
Yeah, but if you win
millions of pounds. Of course, if you win it, Don't get me wrong. I mean, clearly, if you look...
Interesting to see what the players are getting bonused out of it.
Well, and this is the great unknown, isn't it? So how have they got the players engaged? You would have thought that they've given them some very hefty bonuses.
Yeah.
But then were the players organised enough to because it all happened very late.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not actually probably in their contracts. If you think about what's in their contracts, it might be the old style Club World Cup in a lot of them. Yeah. So were the players organised enough to get themselves together as soon as Infantino got his $1 billion from Newcastle's owners, ironically? As soon as he got that $1 billion, were they quick enough to get round the table and have, some impressive negotiations with management?
So Manchester City, 50 million to the good, not bad for 2 weeks' work. Chelsea, 50 million to the good, but if they end up winning it, 100 million to the good. But they've got Palmeiras of Brazil coming up next. The other side of 11:30, we'll talk about Palace, Textor, Lyon, all of that.
Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made a profit for Real Madrid. He set up the only goal in their 1-0 win over Juve, sending the Galacticos into the quarter-finals of the Club World Cup. That victory banked the club an extra £10 million. But will Trent be first choice when Dani Carvajal returns in a few months? Spanish football expert Terry Gibson has been speaking to talkSPORT.
Carvajal is a better defender, and he does give you something going forward. I don't think there's any doubt that Alexander-Arnold's strength is going forward, and he's probably better at putting the crosses in and the diagonal passes.
Elsewhere at Wimbledon, Coco Gauff says she must change her game on the grass to compete in the future. The French Open champion lost in straight sets in the first round yesterday. Today, Emma Raducanu faces 2023 Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, and British qualifier Joe Tarver takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Up at Birmingham, England start their second test against India today, and we're hoping for another classic. Captain Ben Stokes says he had to lie down in a darkened room after last week at Headingley, but he can't wait to return to battle at Edgbaston, particularly against the irresistible Rishabh Pant.
Even though he's my position, I absolutely love watching Rishabh play cricket. I love the way he takes it on in all formats of the game.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
I said there was a lot going on, and there is. In the cricket, England are up against India in the second test at Edgbaston. Let's hear from Sam.
England winning the toss this morning, Jim, choosing to bowl first. India, 14 without loss. Jaiswal has 12. KR Rahul has 1. Big LBW appeal a short while ago. Wokes getting a ball to net back into Jaiswal. Hit him on the pad, given not out on field. England reviewed it. It was umpire's call. So therefore, Jaiswal stays at the crease. Seeing a couple of glorious drives from Jaiswal through the offside. Also seeing a couple of play and misses too. Wokes also had an LBW shout to the right-hander KR Rahul. That was sliding down the leg side though. England unchanged from the first test match. India making 3 changes. No Jasprit Bumrah. But so far in the early stages on day 1 of the second test match, so far so good for India. Asked about first, they're 15 without loss.
Sam, thank you very much indeed. British and Irish Lions have their noses in front against Queensland Reds. It is 14-12 at the moment, live on talkSPORT 2. I can see Tom, I can see Jerry, I can see Charles, and I know that Charles actually is a big Palace fan. Crystal Palace fans in numbers saying to me, when are you going to bring us the news that as FA Cup winners, we will be playing in the Europa League this season? Stefan Borson's in studio with Simon this morning. UEFA confirmed that they're postponing their decision on whether or not Palace can play in the Europa League next season until the outcome of Lyon's appeal over their relegation to the French second division is reached. Now, in a bid to satisfy UEFA multi-club rules, and this is what this is all about, the man in the middle of all of this, John Textor, has since sold his Palace shares to the New York Jets owner Woody Johnson, while this week he announced that he'd be stepping down as a president and board member of Lyon. There's a lot of moving parts to this story. Stefan's going to put it all into perspective for us now. These Palace fans, all they want to know, in my view quite rightly, Stefan, is enough of all this. Are we playing Europa League football or not? What can we tell them?
I'm in a slightly different place from Simon's view, as that UEFA haven't yet made their decision. I mean, I think you have to.
What do you think?
Well, I just think you have to take a step back. The only way it gets to the CFCB, where it is now, the adjudicatory chamber, is if the chief investigator thinks on the face of it there is a breach of Article 5. Okay? So on the face of it, he has recommended a review by the CFCB, which is now thinking about the Lyon and Crystal Palace situation, has done for a number of weeks. There's clearly a problem. So although most of the outside world thinks, how is it possible that he's got decisive influence when we know he's not got more than 25% of the voting rights. He said he hasn't done anything in terms of making day-to-day decisions. He's told everybody everything, John Textor, he's told everything he's told them. So how can it possibly be the case that the CFCB still think that he might have decisive control?
So how is there still a problem?
Well, they clearly do still think that, because if they didn't, first of all, it would never have got to the CFCB, the UEFA adjudicatory chamber. It is there. The fact it's there and they haven't said it's fine tells you they're not comfortable yet that Crystal Palace can play in the same tournament as Lyon. They're therefore waiting to see if Lyon are playing in that tournament. Unfortunately, I think the natural reading of that situation is that they are not convinced, and if Lyon are playing in the Europa, Crystal Palace will not. That's the natural reading. Otherwise, they would have already dismissed the case as having no conflict either way with Lyon. So, unfortunately, I do think that it is dependent on Lyon at the moment. Now,
you sound pessimistic from a Palace viewpoint.
I just think it's gone. This should have been dealt with weeks ago. This has been going on weeks. So, the fact you got to Monday and they said, well, let's see what happens with Lyon. Surely that tells you that they are not convinced that there is no conflict. They believe there's a conflict after all of the submissions. So, and this is part of the problem. Nobody believes John Textor anymore. Okay, so John Textor has gone to the French DNCG, the financial regulator in France, told them a whole load of things that are going to happen this year. Promises have been made, and they haven't been fulfilled. He's gone to them and told them about the sale of Palace, but the reality of the sale of Palace is it is not complete until it's complete, and it can't be complete until the Premier League approve it. And we know from both the Everton situation and the Manchester United situation, those are cases that took between 2 and 3 months for the owners' test to be passed by the Premier League. Now, maybe the Premier League are going to flush it through very quickly this week. And if they do, then that might make things a bit easier with the UEFA situation. But the likelihood is the completion of that transaction is not going to happen until a little bit later, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the decision needs to be made. Now, so unfortunately, people don't believe Textor. They don't believe Textor has no influence. Textor apparently went to the CFCB and said, "Oh yeah, I was involved in the Glasner
appointment.
Yeah, I've always rated him, always wanted him. If he spoke French, or if I had a vacancy, something like this, then I'd have appointed him at Lyon." He said this openly, and then Crystal Palace said, "Oh, hang on a minute, that's not true." And now Crystal Palace have had to make submissions of emails and kind of internal conversations that they had at their end to say that what Textor told the CFCB wasn't right. But of course, he's undermined his own position by being sloppy with his communication to these regulators.
You're nodding, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, the point I made...
Simon won't mind me saying this. He's in contact with Textor. But you're hearing Stefan.
Yeah,
nobody's believing the guy anymore.
I think that's probably right. But it doesn't alter the premises of the conversations I've had with Julian Laurence about debt and structuring and so on and so forth of that nature. The question for me and the point I was making was not quite that UEFA don't think there's a case to answer, is that UEFA are waiting for a decision that has to be made by them. Because if Olympic Lyon are sanctioned by their own governing authorities and drop down a league, then UEFA don't have to make a decision. They can allow Crystal Palace to be in a competition, potentially, because Lyon have discounted themselves without them having to do anything. That was the kind of point I was making yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% clear that if Lyon get relegated,
they can't play in it.
They won't play in the Europa. They won't play in any tournament.
And
then Crystal Palace will.
And then UEFA don't have to make a decision, which was the point I'm making. But the argument now seems to be raging. I'm talking to the French journalist yesterday about the reality of he believes, and so does Textor, that they will re-establish Lyon's position in Ligue 1, that they've got no grounds, this quasi-independent panel, to do what they're doing. They'll re-establish it. Yet there's a perception ruminating amongst the media that both clubs will find a way through this and both clubs will be able to play in the Europa League.
Is there a way through it for Palace? If Lyon stay in Ligue 1 and aren't relegated, are Palace still looking good to play in the Europa League?
Yeah, so and it's going to happen quickly, I would imagine, on this appeal in France. So the way it works in French football is it won't go to CAS, it will go to various French appeals. They will make a decision on Lyon. If Lyon stay in Ligue 1, I think UEFA then say, we think there's a conflict and Crystal Palace have to play, let's say, in the conference.
Oh, gee.
I think that's what will happen.
Palace will appeal it.
Palace will then go to CAS.
Yeah.
Right? They can't go to it doesn't look like you can go to the UEFA Appeal Committee because it's what's known as an urgent case. And so they'll need to go straight to CAS, as the Irish team did.
Yep.
That will be decided over a couple of days, and then they'll make a decision. But I think it's going to be quite hard.
The Premier League can be facilitatory, can't they? I mean, ultimately, is there any? I mean, I know there's a process to go through, but the Premier League have a part to play in this, don't they? Because if they want to look at the fit and proper persons test, they can look at the fit and proper persons test, knowing who Woody Johnson is, knowing his background. They can get there relatively quickly, can't they?
Well, look, I think it would massively help them. While before the decision has actually formally been made, if they approve the sale and Textor no longer owns it, they put the evidence to the CFCB. They say, well, actually, Lyon did get put back into Ligue 1, but of course now Textor is no longer the owner. We never made our decision. Premier League has sorted it out for us because Textor is no longer involved, and of course then in that case both teams can operate. Which
is maybe what UEFA are trying to achieve.
I know, but the time scale doesn't seem to work.
The time scale's the worry, isn't it?
It's really tight. I think you're talking days. Maybe the Premier League are going to do Crystal Palace a massive favour and really push it through very quickly.
You look at these things as you look at everything forensically. There's not an I that isn't dotted or a T that isn't crossed. What is the percentage probability as we sit here now that Palace will play Europa League football next season?
It's very hard to say because I just don't know what the French situation is very hard to decipher from the outside. So even the Lyon fans, I've been looking at a lot of the Lyon forums and the knowledgeable fans and the people that are reading everything about that case, and even they really don't know. And there are no written reasons from the DNCG as to why they've concluded as they have. It's not just about the debt, as Simon says, and in his argument with Julien Laurent, it's not just about the headline of the debt. The debt is mainly about the stadium. It's not just that. It's much more about actually the viability of Lyon's financial position going forward. And Textor probably will speak to Simon afterwards whether I'm right or wrong. I just get the sense that the DNCG and the French don't believe anything Textor tells them anymore about what's going to happen over there. And if they don't believe him, they can't trust that they will be in a financially strong position next season.
I hope we've got good news for Palace fans soon. I really do. Stefan, thanks as always for everything there. Let's get back down to Australia. It's half-time in the match between Queensland Reds and the British and Irish Lions. Alfie Reynolds, what do you think?
Half-time here, Queensland Reds 12, the Lions 21. The Lions lead thanks to first-half tries from Tommy Freeman, Andrew Porter and Duhan van der Merwe. But they have been made to work. Twice the Reds led, Jeff Tumunga-Allen scoring early and Josh Fluke also crossing. Lockie Anderson almost got another when the Lions butchered receiving a kickoff. The ball just went out though, so it hasn't been easy for the Lions. As you would expect, they don't look like a polished outfit just yet. They do lead though. Commentary of the second half will be available on talkSPORT 2 with Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay. The half-time score, the Queensland Reds 12, the Lions 21.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour update on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. Upgrade your protection with Tenor Men and keep control.
Alfie Reynolds, thank you very much indeed. Updates throughout the second half, of course, for you on talkSPORT and live commentary on talkSPORT 2. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan live on talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
Second half coming up. The Lions, of course, they are in the lead against the Queensland Reds. More on that shortly. More on this now, though. Let's head closer to home to Edgbaston in Birmingham. Sam Ellard's all over England, India in the second test. Sam.
And England, as things stand, all over India with the ball. India 21 for 1. Chris Woakes bowling beautifully on his home ground, has the breakthrough. Bowling KR Rahul for 2. A slightly shorter ball that KR Rahul looked to just defend on the back foot. A little bit late onto the shot and he deflected the ball onto his stumps. So KR Rahul bowled for 2. Yashasvi Jaiswal has 13 runs to his name. Karen Nair is 5 not out, although there's a big LBW appeal. Chris Woakes bowling to Karen Nair, the number 3, getting a ball to move back in to the right-hander. He didn't play his shot, hit him on the pad, given not out on field reviewed, and once again umpires called. Therefore Karen Nair survives on 5. England also had an LBW appeal to Yashasvi Jaiswal, given not out umpires call earlier on. But Woakes is bowling beautifully here, Jim, on his home ground. India in a bit of trouble at 21 for 1.
Sam, thank you very much indeed. Succinct as always. In the meantime, it's time for this.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
And as always, we're joined by Charlie Robertson from BetMGM. We're going to look at some of the top events and the odds round and about them. Lord Robertson, good morning. A lot to get through today. The Women's Euros over in Switzerland gets underway. Every England, Wales, Spain fixture is live on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2, plus updates from every other game. So you won't miss a trick on talkSPORT or talkSPORT 2. What's your thinking there, Charlie?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon.
Morning.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Jim, it gets underway today, doesn't it? The Women's Euros. Obviously, all the news over here is obviously hoping England can retain the title they won 3 years ago. They're the second favourites, Jim, at 4 to 1. With only the World Cup winners, Spain, sure to win the betting at 7 to 4. I was having a look, and we've obviously got France, Netherlands, and Wales in our group. And Serena Wiegmann has actually won all 12 of the matches she's managed in the Euros. So the even money on England winning the group might not be a bad bet. And then just quickly in terms of the top scorer markets, Jim, Alessia Russo looks like to lead the line for England. She's obviously very potent in front of goal. Top the WSL goal scoring charts this season with 12 goals, and she scored 4 goals in 6 appearances in the last Euros campaign. So she could be a good bet at 9 to 1 in that market, Jim.
Okay. Do you look no further than England to win the Women's Euros, Simon?
From an interest point of view,
to retain it?
I have no idea.
What? I don't think you've ever said that in your life with me.
Well, I could say I have no interest, but you wouldn't say that. I'll light upon I have no idea. And I hope they do well. I mean, I think the Spanish are the ones to beat, aren't they?
Yeah. I'd like to see the Welsh win the odd game as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not very far away.
Of challenges, and when you hit a ceiling so quickly, it's very difficult to build upon it. I'm disappointed because I think that the way that she played in that, was it the 2021 US Open, was so remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
And such a level that it was always going to be difficult to maintain it, because she hit shots that most players would say were, you can't hit every shot that way, and she was. I'd like to see her getting back to the heights. I wonder now if we've seen the best of Raducanu. I hope not, because she's still a talent.
Well, she said going into this, Charlie, she wasn't expecting too much from herself.
Well, that's managing expectations, isn't it? I mean, if she's managing people's expectations because she knows she's going into a huge championship in England with the reputation that she has, and people are always going to think back to that 2021 version of Emma Raducanu. I don't know whether we'll see that again. I hope that we do.
I hope we do. I hope we see the British and Irish Lions win against the Queensland Reds. It's live on talkSPORT 2. Where are you with that?
Yeah, they're 21-12 up at half-time, Jim. They should just be about to start the second half. They're obviously incredibly short to win, given where they are. We've got a few in-play markets ahead of the second half. One I thought looked quite nice was the Lions to win by 1 to 12 points, 4-1. And then just quickly, Jim, in terms of the series betting against the Aussies, the Lions are still the strong favourites, 4-11, and Australia are 9-4. So, a few more games to go before that, but that's where we are with the series betting.
Excellent. Wait, off the top of your head, do you know what would it come in at for a whitewash, a Lions whitewash of the Aussies in the tests?
If you give me 2 seconds,
there's a man beside me I can chat to casually while you're looking at the odds here. Morning, Simon. How are you?
I don't want to tip the Lions. I mean, there's nothing more than because every time I tip,
you're dreadful. That's
dreadful tip and they lose.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more than I want to see than a crushed, contrite Aussie. I don't want to be wishing that too much and putting a bet on it because it will bock it.
Nonsense. They'll win every test.
A 5-4 for a 3-0 whitewash, Jim.
5-4.
Yeah, I know the Lions are very well fancied to get the job done quite easily, I think.
Good. Well, I fancy them to get the job done. Charlie, thank you so much.
Thanks,
that
guys.
was the latest odds on a few things, all thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made a profit for Real Madrid. He set up the only goal in their 1-0 win over Juve, sending the Galacticos into the quarter-finals of the Club World Cup. That victory banked the club an extra £10 million. But will Trent be first choice when Dani Carvajal returns in a few months? Spanish football expert Terry Gibson has been speaking to talkSPORT.
Carvajal is a better defender, and he does give you something going forward. I don't think there's any doubt that Alexander-Arnold's strength is going forward, and he's probably better at putting the crosses in and the diagonal passes and set pieces and stuff like that, taking the direct free kicks. So there are differences between the two. I think just Danny Carvell just edges it.
Elsewhere at Wimbledon, Coco Gauff says she must change her game on the grass to compete in the future. The French Open champion lost in straight sets in the first round yesterday. Today, Emma Raducanu faces 2023 Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, and British qualifier Joe Tarver takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Up at Birmingham, England start their second test against India today, and we're hoping for another classic. Captain Ben Stokes says he had to lie down in a darkened room after last week at Headingley, but he can't wait to return to battle at Edgbaston, particularly against the irresistible Rishabh Pant.
Yeah, look, even though he's my position, I absolutely love watching Rishabh play cricket. I love the way he takes it on in all formats of the game. You know, he's come under. He's got a bit of stick in his time, but like that type of talent, yeah, just, you know, when you let that type of talent be free, that's what can happen. You know, last week.
And with Thomas Frank preparing for his first season at Spurs, Jason Cundy says the club must improve on last season's league performances, calling them a disgrace. He's got this message for the Tottenham boss.
Be better, but be much better. Be where Spurs should be. Spurs are a top half team, minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, get in the Europa Conference. I think anything less than European football is a failure. Genuinely feels a failure.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday afternoon. Officially, it is Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. Any moving and shaking in the world of football, you hear first and fastest from us right here on talkSPORT. Of course, the attention turns on Chelsea fairly soon over in the US, still in the Club World Cup, still going strong, and up against Palmeiras of Brazil. I'll tell you who the British and Irish Lions are up against right now. If you've been listening to live commentary on talkSPORT 2 with Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay, you will know that they're up against the Queensland Reds. It's just kicked off the second half, and let's dip into it.
Of the left winger Tim Ryan, and he knocks it on, and Josh Fluke was in there again, and it will be a scrum down Lions ball as talkSPORT rejoin us at the start of this second half. We've had 3.5, approaching 4 minutes played, no points as we start the second half. So the Lions 21-12 as they were in the first half, with the 3 tries from Tommy Freeman, Andrew Porter and Duan van der Merwe. Been a bit scrappy so far in the opening stages, Ben Kay.
Yeah, it has. There was a missed tackle in there from Tom Curry. He's not had his strongest game, and again, Jack Morgan has been a superstar in that first half, so a bit of pressure on him to deliver now, Curry, but they managed to force the error anyway. Extravagant offload attempted by Seraruru over the top, and the pressure from Tommy Freeman enough to force the knock on.
Great attacking platform for the Lions this. A scrum 20 in from the right touchline, 3 or 4 metres outside of the 22. Big enough blindside that they've got to respect it. Plenty of open traffic. Gibson Park looks to the blind, comes open. Finn Russell combines with Bundy Aki. Bundy Aki feints it to Hugh Jones, keeps going himself, finally taken down. 8 metres out from the try line. Jamison Gibson Park picks, goes round the edge, gives to Maro Itoje, who gets over the line. Lions have their 4th try of the evening. It is the tour skipper, and there's no doubt with that one. He bounces onto the ground, but immediately reaches out, places it down. Lions have first points of the second half. Queensland Reds 12, British and Irish Lions 26.
Well, a big shot window for what Bundy Aki does better than most people in rugby. His ability to keep the leg drive. 3-4 Queensland Reds players come in to tackle him. He still stays on his feet and makes some yardage. That creates the opportunity with no guards either side of the breakdown for Jamison Gibson Park to dart. He's looked good on his first outing in a Lions shirt. And as he takes the ball out to the right-hand side, directly under the posts, Maro Itoje drops underneath him, and he's able just to get that one-handed right-hand offload back inside, and Itoje dives in against the right-hand upright.
And scoring so close to the post. The conversion never going to be an issue.
That was the sort of play that you can start to see a Lions attacking sort of progression, that if you get Aki making that yardage and then you get Gibson Park playing off him with the good forward runners, just started to see glimpses of what a test team might look like.
Conversion is added, 28-12 it is. Gibson Park will take the Reds restart and clears it right-footed down the pitch and gets it safely off of the playing surface. Reds could go quickly if they want. They don't. They will take the line out. So just to recap you the team. British and Irish Lions, Andrew Porter, Ronan Keller, Will Stewart the front row, Maro Itoje, Ollie Chesham in the seconds, with Tom Curry, Jack Morgan and Jack Conan as the back row of the forwards, Gibson Park and Finn Russell the halfbacks, Hugh Jones and Bundy Aki in the centres, Duan van der Merwe and Tommy Freeman the wingers, Elliot Daly at fullback, Hugo Keenan ill, not able to take his place today, and so Elliot Daly is in. Going well, it has to be said.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay, live on talkSPORT 2, live with us there on talkSPORT. And we'll dip back into that probably before we go today at 1 o'clock. But the Lions cruising at the moment, 28-12 against Queensland Reds. We're going to head out to Turkey very shortly to meet up with some of the great and the good in the world of boxing. We'll explain more when we do that. It's now official, it's confirmed, Simon. Jarell Quansah has left Liverpool, has joined Bayer Leverkusen. It's a permanent deal. 30 million quid initial fee to Liverpool, Fabrizio Romano tells us. 5 million add-ons. A buyback clause starting from 60 million euros. Quansah is now a Bayer Leverkusen player. And there's a lot of chat between German clubs and Liverpool this morning because Bayern Munich, who are over, of course, at the Club World Cup, we're looking at Lucas Diaz and very keen to get a hold of him. That looks unlikely, but Quansah has gone to Bayer Leverkusen and cracks on there under Erik ten Hag. What do you think of that? Is that good business from a Liverpool standpoint?
Well, I mean, ultimately it depends how much Liverpool valued him at in terms of what they thought he was valuable to the squad. I mean, he's played 30 games for them, so getting 30 million quid for him is not bad. I mean, I don't know what they paid for him. I'm trying to work out what they paid for him from the first instance, which I imagine wouldn't have been huge amounts of money. No. So you'll see they probably got quite a significant contribution to PSR. The rumours are that they're looking at Gehi, so he was going to be even further down the pecking order if he was already in that situation himself. I would assume. I mean, Liverpool don't do bad business more often than not.
No.
So one has to suggest that they know what they're doing. The players got to move to a decent side.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the side that they were a couple of seasons ago at Leverkusen.
Leverkusen, well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
And you know, this buyback thing of 60 million euros, I don't see the purpose of that. But I would imagine it's probably quite a decent deal.
Yeah. I mean, Liverpool have been busy, haven't they?
Well, that's what they say, don't they? They always say that when you're in a position... First of all, they didn't spend any money last year, really, of any significance, do they? So they're compressing two sets of transfer windows, three sets of transfer windows into one.
Yeah.
So they've clearly got an array of money. They had a decent foray in Europe, not huge, but a decent foray. They had, obviously, the winning the Premier League and all that goes with that. There'll be various bonuses that have kicked in for winning the Premier League. They've got plenty of money anyway in their ownership model. And so... You know, with Liverpool, they're kicking on now. They're not sticking, and that's what the suggestion is. When you win, you strengthen. You don't strengthen. You know, you don't stay and sit on your laurels. You build from that.
Sure.
And it will bring Liverpool to be a formidable side next season.
Yeah. Jarell Quansah now officially a Bayer Leverkusen player, 30 million quid, and off he goes out there. Luis Diaz staying. One would think at Liverpool, although Bayern Munich were very serious about him.
Unless someone pays the money that Liverpool really can't resist.
We'll see. We're going to talk boxing very shortly. We're going to be out in Turkey with Spencer Oliver and a bunch of others. We're heading there very shortly. We spoke about this, Simon, only yesterday. There was a chance of it happening, and it has happened. One, I can't really believe it, but I have to believe it. One Jake Paul is now an officially ranked boxer by the WBA. It happened last night. The news came through. It happens 3 days after he defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. via a unanimous decision. And now, would you believe it, there is talk, albeit not too serious at the moment, but talk. The next for Jake Paul could be Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any credibility in that. I mean, ultimately what Jake Paul brings is enormous amounts of revenue to the sanctioning bodies. I mean, sticking him in at number 14 in the cruiserweights tells you one of two things. Either the organisation is devoid of any principles and integrity, which is entirely plausible, who put him in that position, or in fact the cruiserweight division is not very deep in talent, or a combination of the two. I mean, he's not been in with a live one. He went in against a washed-up Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I mean, he's been in with a couple of ex-combat fighters, MMA guys. So, you know, he can hold his hands up. Everyone knows he can hold his hands up. But when you talk to the boxing people, they'll tell you that he doesn't technically have any real ability. Paulie Malignaggi was talking about it yesterday. And everyone's quite desperate to see him get a punch on the nose because they know that he's been in choreographed events.
Well, let's get more on that, actually, Simon. I mentioned Turkey. Let's head out there now. Why are we going to Turkey? Later on this afternoon on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel, you're going to get live boxing from Turkey, where Liverpool's Jazza Dickens fights for the IBA Pro Super Featherweight title. Let's head to Turkey now. The IBA Pro Convention is underway. I'm delighted to say waiting to speak to us is one David Hay. David, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, guys.
Good to speak to you. Your weather looks better than the weather we're getting here today. David, I'll talk about the IBA Pro Convention in a second. Simon and I were just talking moments ago about Jake Paul, now officially ranked by the WBA. What is your reaction to that?
I think it's great. If he wants to do professional boxing, then he fights, you know, professional boxers, and obviously he's going to be looked at favourably when it comes to the rankings. So if he's in the rankings, he's got to continue now fighting fighters in the rankings, so we'll find out exactly how good he is. So I think it's a good thing, because I think lots of people who wouldn't be interested in boxing are now interested in boxing because Jake Paul's doing boxing. If he was doing darts, they'd be interested in darts. He has such a big fan base. Anything that brings fans to boxing, young fans, I'm all for. And you know, he fought Chavez the other day. Obviously Chavez is Chavez, but it was a professional boxer who was once a world champion, and he won the fight convincingly. So he's fighting real boxers now, and they've chucked him into the top 15 rankings. So let's see what he can do.
Do you think, David, it's a good thing for him? Because what we've seen at this moment in time is a load of exhibition fights. It's one thing, you know, being able to throw punches against people that can't as much throw them back. Now he goes into a live situation. Do you think it's a good thing for him, David?
I think it's a great thing. If he genuinely believes and wants to be the world champion, then he's on the right path. He's doing what he needs to do. He's obviously got to step up his opposition. You know, Chavez, who's a former middleweight champion from 10 years ago, it's not what he's going to be competing against. You know, the Badu Jacks of the world and the fighters that he's going to need to beat to win world titles. But it's a step closer than the MMA guys he was fighting previously.
Some of the great and the good are going to be gathering with you over there in Turkey, the IBA Pro Convention. Spencer Oliver is going to join us later on and is going to explain more about that. What is your first impression of what you find yourself in there today, David? What's going on? What's it like?
They've brought in all of the big guns. You've got Tyson Fury, they've got Crawford, you know, Cannon the Shannon, you know, Derek Chisora's over there. You know, you've got everyone in boxing are here to see what they're about. They did a convention talking about how they want to. It's not just about professional boxing. They're invested like 25 million into amateur boxing, funding countries that don't have infrastructure. Really a big push on female amateur boxing to, you know, fund this talent from these countries that don't have the means to then turn professional one day and fight for the IBA title. And the thing that sort of struck a nerve with me was like, okay, they're a new governing body, and everyone's like, do we need a new governing body? But they don't want to compete. They want to work in conjunction with others as more of a, I don't know, it's a more holistic way of doing boxing. I know everyone's confused from boxing as there is WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO. So IBA now is in the mix, and what they're doing, which is quite interesting, is they're creating a gold belt. It's like 4 kilogram solid gold belt with diamonds in it for the champion. So I can guarantee you, instead of paying a sanctioning fee, 3% of your sanctioning fee, they're going to give you a belt that's worth probably a lot more than what the sanctioning fee you was having to pay. So it's an interesting way to go about it, but I'm pretty sure, you know, Tyson Fury is up on stage talking. He said he wants to fight for that belt.
I'll bet he
does. They're going about it the right. They're going about it the right way. They've really heavily invested in this infrastructure. I haven't seen anything like it, to be honest.
Interesting, David.
It's interesting to see. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, you've set the scene beautifully for us, mate. We're going to get more from Spencer shortly. Two fighters, I would presume, who are too busy to be there would be Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk, who go head-to-head again very soon. We know what happened last time. Daniel failed in his bid to topple Usyk. What do you think, David, before you leave us? Second guess it for me this time, because it's fast approaching.
Yeah, I thought the first time Daniel had an opportunity that he was going to sort of grab it by the scruff of the neck, and outside of the low blow / borderline punch that had some effect, that was pretty much all he brought to the table in that fight. He was too respectful. We kept it too long range. The fight he had against AJ, very different from that, imposing himself, putting the pressure on, really bringing the heat, because he's a big, strong, rough, tough, got a great chin. He's got all the attributes, and he was able to implement them on AJ and show how good he was. If he comes to the fight with that mindset, just like Chisora did when he fought Usyk, you know, showed him respect, but when it came to closing the range down and bringing the heat, Derek had the best fight against Usyk than anyone's had. It's because he closed the range and worked inside. If Dubois can really impose himself and don't get involved in a boxing match, he's got a shot. Usyk's had his last 4 fights, you know, 2 fights against AJ, 2 fights, you know, against Tyson Fury, hard fights that he won, weren't life and death, but think of the training camp he had to have those 4 fights, the big guys he was sparring. I know it's like sparring big guys, it takes a lot out of you. Has he taken too much out of himself? He's never lost before, undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight, but at some stage you can't, it doesn't work anymore. I found that out. At some stage you can't do what you wanted to do. Nothing suggests he's that comes that close from his last fight. But when he's fighting a young, rough, tough Daniel Dubois with lots of confidence, who's been in there, knows what it's like, you know, he's got a shot, he's got a massive shot, but how do you bet against someone who's never lost? He doesn't know what it's like to lose. But I think if there's ever a chance for Dubois to beat someone like Usyk, it's now with the momentum he's got, you know, at home, he's got everything in his favour, and, you know, Usyk has got nothing to gain really, because he's already beat, but he done the same thing with Tyson Fury and AJ, gave them both rematches and done it better the second time round. So I'm really intrigued in this fight, and you know, everyone's going to be behind Daniel Dubois. You know, he's a great guy.
Sure.
Straight down the line, but he's fighting a wizard. He's fighting someone who doesn't know what it's like to lose, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another Usyk victory, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Usyk starts showing signs of age. Hard training camps, all those amateur fights, world championships, amateur, the WSBs, he's done so much, so many rounds on the clock, so many miles on the clock. He's pristine, but there's a lot of miles on the clock.
David, terrific. You're not showing any signs of age, mate. You're going strong. Thank you so much for joining us. David Hay.
No problem.
David Hay with us live on the show this lunchtime. We'll jump out for a second, head back out to Turkey after this. And remember, live commentary of the British and Irish Lions against Queensland Reds. And they're going okay, the Lions. They're flying 35-12 at the moment. Live commentary on talkSPORT 2. Stay with us.
plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour update on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. Upgrade your protection with Tenor Men. Find out more at tenormen.co.uk.
Getting into the latter stages of the Lions match, British and Irish Lions in action against Queensland Reds right now, 62 minutes or so into the match. Let's get an update. And here is Alfie Reynolds. Alfie.
And it's the Reds 12, the Lions 42. The slim hopes the Reds had have evaporated here. The Lions have scored 3 tries in the second half. It's their 4th, 5th and 6th in the match, with captain Maro Itoje and Jack Morgan both crossing. Tommy Freeman has also scored his second. So they're pulling away exactly what Andy Farrell would have wanted to see at half-time. Commentary of the closing stages is available over on talkSPORT 2 with Andrew McKenna and Ben Kay. The score, the Reds 12, the Lions 42.
Alfie, thank you very much indeed. We'll head back out there on the full-time whistle, but the Lions looking very good for another win before it really gets down to business in the tests against Australia. Closer to home, let's head down to SW19 Wimbledon, of course. It's the first week of it. Let's hear from Lisa O'Sullivan. Lisa.
Morning, Jim. Well, the temperature's dropped and the play's been a bit delayed, but the rain's not dampening the enthusiasm for the championships that really have started with a bang. A Grand Slam record-equalling number of seeds have gone. Today, we'll hail the magnificent 7 British players in action as Henman Hill becomes the HQ of Oliver's Army this afternoon. The lowest-ranked man in the draw, Oliver Tarvit, will face defending champion Carlos Alcaraz in the second match of the day. On centre court, Emma Raducanu follows, tackling the dangerous 2023 champion Marketa Vondrushova. Cam Norrie, Billy Harris, Arthur Ferry and Katie Bolter to come, with British number 3 Sonay Kartal waiting to start over on court 3 in around 10 minutes' time.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. We're everywhere today, but we're loving it. Over in Turkey this morning and into the afternoon, some of the top names in the world of boxing have gathered. So too, amongst them is Tyson Fury, amongst others. It's an IBA event. It's an IBA Pro Convention. We heard from David Hay a short time ago, who was talking to us about Jake Paul, amongst other things, and who may or may not win when it comes to Daniel Dubois up against Alexander Usyk. But let's find out more about this convention and thereafter the fights that are going to be staged over in Turkey. And there's only one man for that job. Spencer Oliver, the much-travelled Spencer Oliver. Good afternoon. What's going on out there?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Yeah, we've got a boxing show here tonight in Istanbul. Jazza Dickens goes in against Albert Batabiev, and it's going to be a big fight, that one. It's for the WBA interim world title, also the IBA world title on the line. Now, the IBA, to explain a little bit about the IBA, are their own federation. You know, it's a federation where they've been working alongside the amateurs, also working alongside the pros as well, and they're sort of trying to merge them together, if you like, and it's like the elite amateurs can box the elite pros, and it doesn't go down on their boxing records either. It's something new, it's something fresh, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of interest in this. You know, you mentioned a couple of names there: Tyson Fury, Conor Benn's out here as well, Derek Chisora's out here. You know, it's something that I think is really going to take off. Like I say, that close association with the amateur boxing, giving those kids the opportunity. A lot of the Eastern Europeans, and obviously with the pros as well, they want to work with the governing bodies, with the WBC, WBA, IBF, and all of the governing bodies, WBO as well. So it's interesting times right now, and it's a fantastic event.
I mean, I must admit, Spencer, I'm lost when we start talking about all these governing bodies. So what is different about the IBA?
So what the difference with the IBA is, the IBA used to be an amateur boxing association, so they were heavily involved with the amateur boxing, they were involved with Olympic boxing, but now IBA Pro, which is what we're going to see this evening. By the way, you can see that fight starts on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel from 3:30 p.m. today. 2 bare knuckle fights on there as well. But yeah, the IBA, the difference with them is that they've now come into the pro ranks as well. They've set up their own foundation, and they're working. They're not working alongside BoxRec, and so the fights won't go on their records. So, like, to give you an example, you can have a kid that's an Olympic champion going in and boxing on the IBA show against a world champion, a WBA, WBC world champion. Them guys could fight for the IBA title, and it wouldn't go down on their records. But it's all about getting the best boxing the best. They've seen a gap in the market, and that's what they're trying to exploit.
I mean, when Spencer says, Simon, you get a bit of everything, it very much sounds like that. They've even thrown some bare-knuckle fighters in there as well. I'm not entirely sure what we're getting, but there's a market for it. Of that, there is no doubt.
A lot of noise around boxing, isn't there? I mean, these are the guys, I presume, Spence, these are the guys that had all the controversy about the testing regime around Imam Khalif a few years ago, that the IOC weren't comfortable with. There was a suggestion that there were Russian influence was over them. They've now got a change of management, a change of ownership, haven't they? So I'm assuming they're reigniting and rejuvenating and revitalising themselves, and they've got a whole raft of thinking behind it, right?
That's absolutely right, Simon. You know, I mean, they're not just putting on these boxing events, and it is about giving opportunity to these Eastern European fighters that you see them winning gold medals in the Olympics, and they don't get that opportunity because, you know, they're not household names where boxing, you know, is really big, like America, like the UK, where they can't sell tickets, they're not going to get the opportunity. But now with the IBA, they can invest in these guys and give them that opportunity and give them that platform and the big fights. And the IBA, I think the idea of it was interesting today at this press conference. It's not just about, you know, the boxing shows and the boxers that they're trying to help out, amateur and professional. They're opening up gyms. They want to open up a gym in every capital of the world. That's their plan long term. They're talking about opening up gyms absolutely everywhere, and it's not just for boxers, but it's just helping the younger communities, etc., etc. So they've got a huge plan there.
What promoters are out there, Spence?
Yeah, we got. No, we haven't got any promoters out here right now. So it's all the boxers that have come out here, Simon. No promoters are out here right now. It's just all the boxers, and obviously the boxers have that interest because they've been asked to come out here, but they want to see what it's all about. Like I say, merging bare-knuckle boxing with boxing's never been done before. There's a real interest with that. 2 fights bare-knuckle boxing and this boxing. Jazza Dickens, you know, boxing top of the bill for a WBA interim world title as well. Yeah, it is a massive changing of the times, but people like change right now.
Very much so, Spencer. I would check your wing mirrors. There's some fairly shady individuals wandering around behind you, but we're keeping an eye on you. Spencer, thank you very much indeed. We'll head back out to Turkey shortly. If memory serves me right, Simon, all these different bodies, and now the IBA on the scene. I mean, is this not what the other Turkey Al Sheikh, was trying to outlaw, to bring together one identifiable body?
For his ends, right? So what you don't want is a monopoly, because if he is the only game in town, then that's the only situations that you have. But what we've got is too many. We've got the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, the IBO, the WBO, the IBA. If what I'm reading behind Spencer's, I'm fascinated to understand how you're going to amalgamate amateurs and pros.
Well, right.
And what's the configuration going to be? Because the amateurs fight certain levels of fights. They fight in a certain way and certain levels of experience. And the pros are the pros. So it'll be interesting to see what the actual business model is. But, you know, they're all over there because ultimately they're being flown in and bussed in like Turkey does to try and get people in and around it, to give it some hype and some buzz.
Yeah.
Former heavyweight champion of the world, David Haye, Chisora has got currency at this moment in time. Tyson Fury, you know, fresh from filing his accounts this year, which shows he's got hundreds of millions in the bank, is over there.
They're all there. We'll head out there actually after 12:30 because we may well, before we go, find out a little bit more about what it's all about if we speak to the chief executive of the whole thing, a man by the wonderful name of Al Siesta. In the meantime, the Lions are cruising to victory against the Queensland Reds, 47-12. It's looking good for them. We're almost into the last half hour.
Trent Alexander-Arnold has already made a profit for Real Madrid. He set up the only goal in their 1-0 win over Juve, sending the Galacticos into the quarter-finals of the Club World Cup. That victory banked the club an extra £10 million. But will Trent be first choice when Dani Carvajal returns in a few months? Spanish football expert Terry Gibson has been speaking to talkSPORT.
Carvajal is a better defender, and he does give you something going forward. I don't think there's any doubt that Alexander-Arnold's strength is going forward, and he's probably better at putting the crosses in and the diagonal passes.
Elsewhere at Wimbledon, Coco Gauff says she must change her game on the grass to compete in the future. The French Open champion lost in straight sets in the first round yesterday. Today, Emma Raducanu faces 2023 Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, and British qualifier Joe Tarver takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Up at Birmingham, England start their second test against India today, and we're hoping for another classic. Captain Ben Stokes says he had to lie down in a darkened room after last week at Headingley, but he can't wait to return to battle at Edgbaston, particularly against the irresistible Rishabh Pant.
Even though he's my opposition, I absolutely love watching Rishabh play cricket. I love the way he takes it on in all formats of the game.
There's plenty more at talksport.com.
Boxing Update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
So much going on at the moment, it's difficult to keep across it all. But this Saturday, live from Manchester, ex-super lightweight contender Jack Catterall moves to welterweight to face the unbeaten Harlem Eubank. It's available live only on DAZN. Sign up at dazn.com/boxing. Let's head out to Birmingham, Edgbaston to be precise. England against India. It's the second test this Wednesday lunchtime. Here's Sam Ellard. Sam.
India 74 for 1. The only wicket England picking up this morning. KR bowled by Chris Woakes for 2. This second wicket partnership now worth 59 runs. Karen Nair batting at 3 today has got 26. Yashasvi Jaiswal has 45. Umpire's call handed lifelines to Jaiswal on 12 and Karen Nair on 5. Both off the bowling of Woakes. Both perhaps fortunate to survive. Jaiswal looks in good touch. We've just seen back-to-back fours off the bowling of Tong. One through the covers and then a glorious drive back down the ground. India weathered, though, perhaps the early storm. In particular, Chris Woakes in the first hour was really good with the new ball. England already gone to the short ball tactic. But India's opening batter, Jaiswal, carrying on his really good form. And Karen Nair, bumped up to 3 today, looks pretty comfortable. We've got 20 minutes or so to go until lunch. India are 75 for 1.
Sam, thank you very much indeed. We mentioned Catterall against Harlem Eubank this weekend. But before that, it appears some of the top names, not only in British boxing, in world boxing, have converged upon Turkey today. They're over there, albeit the heat is something else out there that we have witnessed in previous days here. But over in Turkey, some of the biggest names in the sport, Terence Crawford, Tyson Fury, have gathered at a thing called the IBA Pro Convention. Spencer Oliver joined us from it a short time ago. Let's head back out there. Former boxer and top trainer, a fellow we know very well on this show, Paul Smith, brother of Liam and Callum, joins us live on the show. Paul, good afternoon to you. I mentioned some of the big names that are there. So this is a significant event, is it not? It must be.
Yeah, hello to you boys. It's a big event, it's a massive event. Obviously there's been a lot of money, a lot of funds have been put into this, and some of the names here are out of this world. Obviously Roy Jones Jr., Shannon Briggs, all the old champions of yesteryear, current champions, people still fighting, like obviously Tyson Fury, who we think is still fighting, Terence Crawford being probably one of the best out there at the moment on the planet. Everyone's here to support the IBA and at this conference to see what the IBA are going to be starting in the near future.
And what are they, if you can condense it for me, Paul, what are they starting? Why does boxing need IBA Pro?
They're talking about a lot of transparency. You know, they want to give obviously boxers the best opportunities. They're talking about building an infrastructure where they help young boxers get into boxing gyms and fund the kit and fund things for them, so they don't have to pay to go to tournaments, so they don't have to then miss out on them tournaments, rather than not being able to go because of, you know, not having the best start in life, let's say, which I'm all for. Obviously then they're talking about, obviously then when the fighters get to these big title fights, they want to put the big fights on. They want to have their own fighters. There's a lot of Eastern Europeans in here, a lot of Russians, Kazakhs and the likes, who always have to leave their home country to go to the States or the UK to receive the recognition. And one of the people on the stage before mentioned that obviously then the people in the States and the UK won't really care as much about them as their home fans would. But this is a big platform for everyone now, especially in Europe, to now have good fights on and competitive fights for titles.
Paul, do you think it's a good thing? I mean, obviously the mood music is with Turki Al Sheikh saying we need to refine and streamline what's happening in boxing because we're getting the best fight and the best, and I'm going to do this by the Ring magazine, and I'm going to do it via my mechanisms. And now we've got Alphabet City again. We've got WBC, WBA, WBO, IBO, IBF, IBA. I mean, do you think I know you've got to be a little bit diplomatic because you're over there probably in their space, but do you think it's a good thing, Paul? Another facet, another faction.
Simon, listen. See, this is the thing. What's quite confusing, and when we got here, they explained they're not a governing body. They want to work with the WBO, WBA, the IBF, and the WBC. Now, I only recognise 4, and most people who are in boxing do only recognise the 4, and they're the 4 main ones. But for me, the more people that are trying to put good fights on, these are explaining that they want to put good fights on. Also, they want to come to Britain, they want to go to the States, they want to be all around the world. But obviously getting the best fight and the best is what we all want, and we're lucky that we've been seeing a lot of that recently with His Excellency, with Teki Al-Sheikh, with the Ring Magazine, with Riyadh Season, with Sella. But if this is another opportunity to do that, let's have it right, and let's speak brutally honest. You're not going to get fights unless you've got the best money, and if there's money on the line to put these fights on, then we're going to see the best fights. And for me, I'm all for that. You know, I'm really looking forward to Canelo Crawford. I'm really looking forward to, even still, as we've said on the show, I'm still looking forward to seeing AJ Fury, but that's not going to happen unless both fighters are receiving, you know, massive amounts of money and the right platform and venue to have that fight on. But if the best fights are being made because there's a pot of money to do so, then I'm all for it.
Paul, we know that we're going to be seeing, whether many people like it or not, we're going to be seeing again Chris Eubank Jr. up against Conor Benn. Of course, your brother Liam fought on the undercard the first time around, and of course we know the first time around Eubank Jr. Won unanimously. A, are you having it? And B, what might you think might happen in the second episode of the two of them?
To answer your B, I think the same thing will happen. I thought it was relatively straightforward. I don't think it was a close fight. I thought Eubank and the bigger, better man won on the day. And I'm saying that knowing Conor Benn's just over my shoulder, I might be able to hear me, but a bit of luck it doesn't. But I think it'll be pretty much the same result. But and B, A, am I having it? I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was an entertaining fight. I thought the atmosphere was absolutely brilliant, to be honest with you. I thought the atmosphere was really good, but the atmosphere was a lot of nostalgia also. There was a lot of fellas my age, 40, 41, 42 and over, who remember the golden era of their fathers fighting and wish we had probably had them fights as well back in the day. So I'm for it. I'd like to see that fight again because it was a very entertaining fight between two fighters who left it all in the ring.
What's the situation with Liam? Just in the passing, how is he these days, Paul? What's he up to?
He's here with me now, Jim. I'm sure he'd rather be on the paddle court, which is in the hotel, but he's here having to be at these conferences and everything else in a working capacity with Callum as well. So I don't know. Every answer he's been giving himself when he's been asked is he doesn't know. It's probably looking like he might retire, but at the minute, if there's an offer that comes in, and he'll have a think about it. You know, what he said last night made a lot of sense as well. He said, "Look, I'm looking at people like Dave Allen and others still fighting on, and I've got plenty more in the tank than them. But it's whether he wants to carry on at the level that he's been used to, and it's a big decision for him to make. So I think he's just letting the time go by and have a think about it."
Are we any closer to seeing what Callum's doing, Paul?
Nothing's done yet, Simon. He's in negotiations. He's talking with Benavidez. He's talking with his team. He's talking with a couple of other people to see what can happen. And he's looking around September, October, maybe November at the latest. But I don't think he's any closer as of yet, to be honest with you. After speaking to him last night and this morning.
Paul Smith, as always, it's great to speak to you, Paul. Thank you so much for setting the scene there.
Thanks, boys.
What's your reading into this IBA Pro Convention? I mean, so many different people from different facets of life are out there.
I don't know.
Just saw Troy Deeney walk past Paul behind him.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of these things can be all fur coat and no knickers. I don't know whether that's the case of it, and I can't quite understand the model of it. I mean, I looked back at them previously, and there was a lot of controversy about what they did prior, and quite frankly, I think a lot of that controversy was concocted by the IOC because it didn't like the fact that they were quite robust about the gender testing that went on with Imam Khalif and the fact that Russians were involved in it, and they felt there was a lot of corruption involved. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the case. Now, I don't know what their model is. They are a sanctioning body of sorts because they're going to fight for one of their belts. Now, I don't understand the dynamics of what Spencer was saying earlier on, and maybe he doesn't either, which is that the amateurs are going to fight the pros. But anything, I suppose, like Paul says, that puts a spotlight on boxing, that enables perhaps the best in class to fight.
Nothing's
the
off the table.
Then really and truly, one should be all for it.
Yeah.
So until you've got a reason to be negative about something, I think you should always look at it with a half-full glass mentality. Okay. They're all out there. They're all probably enjoying their hospitality. They've all been paid to be over there. You're not going to get anybody turning around saying it's a load of old whatever. And we'll see what these guys are all about.
Okay. We found out more about the Lions and what they're all about because they've just were just about to notch up another win, closing seconds of their game against Queensland. Well, let's find out the latest from Alfie Reynolds. Alfie.
Yeah, we're into the final play here, Jim. The clock in the red. There's just been a knock-on which could end the game, but the referee is having a discussion with the two captains. Maratu, Jake, pleading his case. In fact, it's going to be a penalty to the Lions for a deliberate knock-on, so they will have an opportunity to score another try here. The score at the moment is the Queensland Reds 12, the British and Irish Lions 47. The Lions hurtling towards their second win in a row on Aussie soil. They're going to have a scrum about 10 metres out right in front of the posts. They've scored 7 tries so far. Tommy Freeman has scored in each half, and then Andrew Porter, Duhan van der Merwe, Mauro Itoje, Hugh Jones and Jack Morgan, who's been excellent, also all going over. It was another slow start for Andy Farrell's side. That might be a concern. Elliot Daly also went off in this second half injured, so we'll ask Farrell about that afterwards. The Reds themselves, they've scored 2 tries, both of them in the first half through Tumunga Allen and Fluke. In terms of the next steps for the Lions, they fly to Sydney tomorrow before taking on the New South Wales Waratahs on Saturday. Still got the final play to go here, but the Lions are going to win in Brisbane. At the moment, it's the Queensland Reds 12, the British and Irish Lions 47.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour update on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. Show nothing but confidence this summer. Choose boxer shorts with built-in protection for drips and dribbles. Visit tenormen.co.uk today.
Closing stages, of course, of that Lions match on talkSPORT 2.
See some of those haircuts out there.
Some of the haircuts.
Some proper mullets. One of those, I think one of those Queensland players looked like Terry Thomas.
Now, there was an actor. I wonder if he's got teeth like Terry Thomas. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan in the closing stages of our show today. We're back after this. We're with you courtesy of Selco, where the trade goes.
He plays that villain role very well now. That's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
It is Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. Thanks to Alfie Reynolds for the updates on the Lions win down there in Queensland.
Can I hear that right from Luke that Conor Ben doesn't want to come on because I'm on? What a little cry, baby. I wanted to have a little drink with me when he wanted to be part of message. Now he's got a few quid in his pocket.
Oh, right. Well, Conor Ben is amongst those who have gathered for this event, the IBA Pro Convention over in Turkey. Conor Ben, it appears, doesn't want to speak to Simon, but that's fine. We'll go over that. In the meantime, and by no means in any way a substitute of any sort, we're delighted that Derek Chisora joins us live from Turkey. We've heard from David Hay. We've heard from Paul Smith, of course, boxer now turned trainer, amongst other things. We've heard from our own Spencer Oliver. Derek, good afternoon. Can you describe the scene you're at there, this convention? It appears anybody who's anybody in the sport of boxing is there, and that includes you.
Let me tell you something, don't believe the lies. If they were not paying anybody, none of these guys would be here, fella, I'll tell you that now. But you know what, these guys are doing an amazing thing for boxing, because they are putting guys who haven't got no names anywhere on their platform, giving them money, making some money, and it's amazing, and everybody's here to support it. But at the same time we're here to support it, they're paying everybody, which is what we like to see.
Yeah. That's good, Derek, and it's a point well made. Derek, in this very studio quite recently, one Alexander Usyk sat in front of Simon and myself, and he said, who is my toughest opponent? My toughest opponent was Derek Chisora, and he made no bones about that. You're still a live one. What is next for you? Is there another fight on the horizon?
Yeah, listen, I'm the manager for the IBF. My position is secured. You know, I've had offers, you know, from Saudi, from Frank. And I told him, listen, my position, I'm still standing on my position. I don't want to have a warm-up fight. I don't want to support anybody else's card. I want my own card. I want to do Wembley, or I can do another country other way, you know, for my goodbye fight, basically.
Well, who would you like to fight, Derek? I mean, obviously you're on a rich vein of form. Gerald Washington, Joe Joyce, Otto Walling, all great performances. You now give yourself an opportunity to do as you wish and potentially fight for another title. Who do you want to fight, Derek?
Yes, I want to fight for a title. I want to fight the best. You know, I would have loved to fight Anthony. You know, but Anthony right now is just recovering, getting ready for his biggest fight with Tyson Fury. You know, so now I will push on to either fight Joseph Parker, you know, or I'll fight somebody else. You know, but right now I'll just wait for the Undisputed to happen in Wembley with Daniel and Usyk, and then after that, I'll know exactly where my position is.
You mentioned in the passing there the prospect of Anthony Joshua fighting Tyson Fury. Is it your honest belief we'll see that will be next for the two of them?
Let me tell you something. If they don't give it, listen. Put it, whatever you think is happening is not happening. Go the other way, yeah? Because big news will be announced soon anyway. That's all I gotta say.
But you're giving us a little heads up and an exclusive there, Derek, and for that we thank you.
Hey, Daniel.
Coming up very soon, Daniel Dubois against Alexander Usyk. Who wins it?
Listen, save money's on Usyk. I'm not gonna lie to you, but you never know with this young kid right now. He's hungry. He wants it. You know, this is a second time round coming around on this fight, Undisputed. You know, so everybody's gonna be in his ear, pushing him. You know, doing everything right. So we'll see what happens on the 19th in Wembley.
Can I ask you, Derek, what you make of your old mate? To use a term euphemistically, Dillian White going against Moses Atoma.
Listen, I said to everybody, the money must be right, because you know, there's no light end of that tunnel, to be honest with you. You know, I did message him. I was like, listen, I don't know why you're taking that fight, for what reason. And he goes, oh, he don't care, you're not my friend, you know. So I was like, listen, just be careful. And I messaged Moses. I'm like, Moses, just fight him, but don't put him to sleep that badly, basically. And I wish him all the best. You know, I'll be there to support it, but I don't see that fight going. Listen, if that fight goes past 4 rounds, and then we're in trouble.
It didn't sound like a good luck message to your mate Dillian White.
Listen, let's be honest. You're boxing a guy who's 24 years old, who's got his always faculties right, getting trained by one of the best trainers in the United Kingdom, and then, mate, it's like you got more chance of winning the lottery than you beating that Moses Atuma. Let's be honest about it. Yeah. So if you play the lottery today, probably win. I know you understand. So no, I love Dylan, but you know the same things. How can I make it? It's like, put it this way, it's like Liverpool playing Champions League, playing the lower league you understand what I mean, but it is what it is.
I'd love to have seen your text message. Good luck, Dillian. If you can, get them to call it off. Derek, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for joining us live. Derek Chisora coming to us in a way that only Derek Chisora can. From Turkey. He is a character, isn't he?
Yeah, and he deserves the opportunities he's getting.
He does, you're right, Sam.
I was critical at times of the levels that he fought at when I thought about the third rematch against Dillian White. But he's earned the right to keep on fighting. People worry about his health and so being.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. And if he gets a shot for the IBF, if it falls off the table as a result of the Undisputed and lands in the lap of Joseph Parker versus Derek Chisora, well, wouldn't it be a wonderful swan song for Derek to go out winning a world title? He wouldn't go out then, would he?
It would be a great swan song. It was a great scoreline in the end for the Lions, 52-12. They beat the Queensland Reds, and if you tuned in on talkSPORT 2, I'm sure you were thoroughly entertained. Hope you were thoroughly entertained on talkSPORT this morning with his good self to my left and myself. I'm deprived of your services tomorrow. You're away off out to the sunshine, and enjoy. I'll be here in the company of two England hard men, Martin Keown and Stuart Pearce. Looking forward to that big time. It's 1 o'clock.